Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to GameFace, episode 353 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your host for this podcast and the founder of Sifted. But I'm not here alone. I have an awesome friend alongside me to talk about the latest and greatest in video games, and that is Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Dice
roll. Crossing the fingers on the dice roll. We're just like you guys. We've been playing the living tar out of Baldur's Gate 3, and we're going to talk about that on today's show. In fact, it's the headlining game for today's show. As you might expect, I'm sure you guys have some opinions as well. We're going to integrate you guys a little bit more into this discussion because I'm sure a lot of you guys have been playing it and you have a lot of important things that you can add to our discussion. So it's going to be a symbiotic discussion for Baldur's Gate 3 here on GameFace. But otherwise, aside from all the dice rolls, how has your week been, Matt?
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
EVO.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. How much time did you spend watching EVO?
Fair amount.
Yeah.
I mean, I had it on while I was playing Baldur's Gate. A good amount because
why not?
Why not? I mean, if I'm going to play the same section four or five times, might as well have something else on.
It is interesting. Like I try to trace back to when I started listening to podcasts while I was playing games. It seemed to me, at least personally, it's a recent phenomena.
I started doing it during the lockdown.
During COVID?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
To hear a human voice while I was playing a video game.
So you didn't feel quite as alone.
Yeah.
It's like a love-hate relationship I have with it because there are times I make sure that I play the bulk of the games that I play for GameFace without podcasts. And if I do play games with a podcast, I make sure that like I have formed an opinion around that game before I do the podcasting thing with it because I do feel like it can distract you a little bit from the fine details.
Yeah, I play the game until I kind of get the gist, and then and I don't always, but at a certain point, it's like 2 chapters into Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Yeah, I get
the podcast is coming on. Come on. Yeah.
Once a game settles into that groove where you understand what the loop is and that kind of thing, like I think it's okay if you're evaluating games to do it then, but if you are listening to podcasts while playing games the whole time, I don't think you're giving a game a fair assessment.
Yeah, you got to listen to it. You got to hear it. You got to see what the audio sets a tone.
Nope, there's Luna.
Like, it's just like, but it's like, if you're playing like an open world game and you're in the middle of it, if you're in the thick of it where you're doing all the repetitive, put on something.
Yeah, no harm, no foul there.
Put on music, whatever. Something else is fine.
Yeah. So anyway, we have a pretty big show for you guys today. Lots of housekeeping again today, lots of smaller stories. We're going to talk about Baldur's Gate 3. We're going to talk about EVO. We're going to talk about a smaller indie game that I played this week as a palate cleanser from Baldur's Gate 3. I've affectionately started calling Baldur's Gate 3 Splatterface, Matt, because every cutscene, everybody just has blood splattered all over them. And it never goes away. Like
it does if you heal.
Yeah,
that's because of you've been injured,
right?
And you have bruises and everything. It's pretty well done.
Yeah,
you can tell how low on hit points something is because of how beat up it looks.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else going on this week? It's a pretty slow week. Not a lot of big game releases. There was a game that was supposed to release today, WrestleQuest, that was delayed yesterday. There's already a couple reviews for it out there, but they found a terminal bug at the last second, and so they've delayed it by like a couple weeks to the end of the month. But anyway, if you're looking forward to WrestleQuest, that is not out there today if you had been anticipating it. And it was in Dossier, so some of you may have been. But yeah, pretty much a slow week in games. I think they actually timed the release of Baldur's Gate 3 pretty well.
No, it's a good place to be.
Because August is backloaded with game releases. There's a lot of good games coming this month, but not until like the end of August. So
they wouldn't have gotten that Steam record otherwise.
That's true.
It was a good time to do it.
Nice feather in the cap for any game. So, yeah, we'll talk in depth about Baldur's Gate 3
again,
later.
I mean, you can tie the tag on the toe of the claim that people don't want single-player games. This is a single-player, massive RPG, story-focused, rather, that, made by a, big AAA budget, limited platform, just PC for now.
Yeah.
And, sold like crazy. Yeah. So no DLC, no microtransactions, no season pass, no expansion yet. It's just a game.
Yeah.
And here you go. So again, they don't have to be games as services, folks.
They don't.
Just make a good game.
PlayStation's about to find that out, man.
Yeah, the hard way, probably.
We'll see how it goes, but a little dicey, to say the least. Let's see. We do have a lot of housekeeping today, so we probably shouldn't waste too much time screwing around with the open, but let's take a look and see what you guys are saying and what you're up to. JM Rain already dropped a bunch of subs on us. Thank you, JM Rain. That's awesome, man.
So did Sound Wizard.
Oh, really? Wow. Oh, yeah, we're at level 6 of the hype train and the show just started. You guys are awesome. See what you guys do when I'm not looking? You guys are awesome. That's what happens. There they are, Sound Wizard with all those tier 1 subs. Thank you, man. That is so awesome. East Demon, sounds like Shane isn't having a good time with Baldur's Gate 3. I think he's referencing a little convo that he and I had on the site at sifted.net, but I think he's wrong. Well, I've had a couple issues that I've made public on Sifted, and so maybe people think that my opinion is a little different than it really is. You'll have to wait and find out. And here's something really funny. The Big Smoke 82 wrote in chat, I picture Matt and Shane chasing Luna around the house to get her in the opening. Now, we have never, ever done that. That has never happened until today. The exact moment you sent that, he had got up and was trying to find Luna. It's insane and uncanny that happened.
Because she was in here.
Here's the thing. She always comes in here on her own and just sits on the table. Matt never has to go look for her.
Yeah.
And
last week she didn't.
Right.
And then today she did, and she was up biting my hair, but then either you moved your chair, I put my phone, some small noise happened, and she will freak out if a noise she doesn't expect happens, and she jumped a foot and ran away and ripped my arm open.
Yeah, she brought blood on your arm, right?
I don't know if you can see
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah, you can see.
There it is.
And then she ran off, and Matt...
She ran off, and he's down the hall, and I was trying to lure her back in with her snake toy.
And you sent that message while he was trying to get her back here. It was insane that you sent that message and that happened. So anyway, just thought I would bring that up. We got a couple people who gave us Twitch Prime while we were gone. Wampler13, thank you. Mystics Now Pig, thank you for Twitch Prime. It doesn't collect all...
Probably Mystic Snow Pig.
I said Mystics Now Pig. Mystic Snow Pig, yeah. It doesn't keep all of you guys who come and, like, a lot of people will watch Pactor Factor and they'll come and subscribe with Twitch Prime. It doesn't keep all you guys while we're gone, unfortunately, but we like to catch the ones that it does. So thanks again to Sound Wizard and JM Rain for dropping these subs on our chat. Toast9, thank you for Twitch Prime as well. Appreciate that. Let's see if there's any others that have slipped in here. Nope. Andy T. Monahan says it is International Cat Day.
It is.
And Luna has decided to... Here she comes. She's creeping. Hello. There she is. You can hear her purring. She knows where to go for her camera time. She'll jump up there in a second. So anyway, I think it's time to get on with the housekeeping for GameFace 353. And as I said, we have a good bit of it for this week's episode, like we have for the last 5 episodes. Lots of small stories happen and not lots of big ones over the last month or so. The first one, though, is a bit of a disappointment. And we talked last week.
This is the most Rockstar thing that's ever happened.
We talked last week. Yeah. We talked last week about how there were basically leaks that a new version of Red Dead Redemption was being worked on. It was there was a ratings board thing, and there was some stuff that leaked. They found a logo for it, blah, blah, blah. And we both we agreed that this has to be a remake or a remaster because it's a game that's desperately in need of it. Mm-hmm. And Rockstar would never, ever in a million years repeat the mistake that it made with the Grand Theft Auto trilogy remakes, or what the hell they were.
Definitive
editions. And as it turns out, that's exactly what Rockstar is doing. It's once again re-releasing one of its classic games with little to no work being done on them. Matt, how shocked were you to hear this?
I mean, not at all.
Yeah.
It's Rockstar. I guess I'm a little surprised they didn't kludge together a PC version of some kind out of it, just using an emulator or some shit, but it's wow. It's not like they announced anything and it was all leaks and stuff, but it's just sure, why not?
So Red Dead,
at least it's playable on modern systems.
Well, a couple
Xbox
of them.
Now.
Yes, so it's
not PC, but you can play it on everything else.
The announcement was that a port of Red Dead Redemption, is coming to PlayStation 4 and Switch. Now, it already works on Xbox because the backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty huge step up, I would add, too.
It's very well done. They definitely plussed it a bit. Like, it does not look like the original 360 version running, on a modern. It looks good,
and the game has been patched. It's like a decade old at this point.
It's very, you still get the occasional magic cougar, but like it's much better. It plays way better than it did at launch.
But and I saw this morning that there are graphics comparisons out there: Xbox 360 versus Switch, Matt, in the showdown of the century.
Yeah,
and the funny part is the Switch version doesn't look hardly any better than the Xbox 360
version. Because the Switch is not that much more powerful than the Xbox 360, is it?
Yeah. But Red Dead is now officially on a Nintendo platform. That's kind of a big deal, I guess.
I mean, I guess if you, that's the thing is like the Switch is great in that regard if you haven't owned a game console in like 15 years.
Pretty much, yeah.
Otherwise, it's sort of old news. I mean, it's good that it's playable on all the modern consoles now, I guess.
Yeah, and Congren brings up a good point, too, that they left out the online play, too.
Yeah, well, that's not a surprise.
Yeah,
the
multiplayer.
They don't want you to do that. I mean, they left out the online play in the second one now, too.
Yeah.
They want you to play GTA Online. That's it. If you're going to play an online Rockstar game, they want you to play GTA.
Because they didn't support Red Dead Online all that long.
Not very much, no. A few years, but like... It's certainly not on the level of like what GTA 5
You're right,
gets.
though. They want to funnel all their fans into that one place.
They've figured out what works and what's really popular, and that's what they're going to focus on.
They figured out where the easy money is.
Just so you know, buckle up for the online integration in 6, guys. Like, because I don't know if this game's going to be what we expect it to be, like in terms of like being a GTA. I mean, hopefully it is.
I don't think they're going to have online play inside GTA 6. I think that they're going to just use GTA Online and just start bringing elements from GTA 6 into GTA Online. Like, why would you kill GTA Online?
I don't think they'll kill GTA Online. I think GTA 6 is going to be an expansion to GTA Online.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's basically going to be an add-on.
Oh.
I think to the point that I don't know if you're going to be. I wonder if you're going to have to play GTA 6 in GTA Online, like if you'll just be good, and like
that would really suck.
It would, like, but I'm thinking if I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of like Rockstar in terms of how to maximize that kind of thing, like I can definitely see, and I don't agree with this proposal, but I definitely could see a world where they think, oh, having the chaos of GTA Online happening in your campaign game will make it all feel alive and integrated, and it'll lure you to want to play GTA Online because it's so crazy. You see all this crazy shit happen while you're trying to do missions.
I can see where they might think that.
Right. I mean, to us, that's going to be the most frustrating thing we've ever had to fucking deal with in a game. But, like, to them, it's basically free advertising for the thing that's going to keep you giving them money for years after you finish GTA 6. So my concern, my worst-case scenario, is that GTA 6 is something like that.
I hope you're wrong.
So do I.
ETH even points out that it was Microsoft that did all that work and not 2K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all Microsoft doing for all their
cleaning up stuff.
They would do, and there was a conflict on that at some point, I think, because like Rockstar was like, we didn't give you permission to change our game, and they're like, we didn't change your game, we just changed how the Xbox like presents it, basically. And they're like, there was a little bit of friction there for a second.
Typical Rockstar. Yep. Trying to take the piss out of somebody who's trying to help them. That just makes sense. Sneaky says just GTA Online with a 6 storyline, something like that. I really hope that that's not the case. I think the vast majority of people would be hugely disappointed if that were the case.
I would agree. I don't know if Rockstar knows that.
It would be an internet backlash like you've never seen before. Like, holy moly, man. All I gotta say is Rockstar better buckle up if that's the plan for Grand Theft Auto 6, because it will flop spectacularly. And that's even knowing that generally people give Rockstar way more leeway than they give other developers and publishers.
Yeah. It's the only explanation for why people... I saw somebody praising this game, Red Dead 2, as a masterpiece earlier. And I'm like, in terms of like presentation, sure. In terms of actual gameplay, give me a break.
I think it just depends on your perspective and what you enjoy.
Yeah, but if you enjoy a character that does what you tell him to do when you move the fucking stick, no.
Touche. Yeah. So, anyway... A pretty big disappointment for Red Dead. Everybody kind of thought it might be a remaster or a ground-up remake because it kind of needs it. But as it turns out...
Yeah, but then this is like the most low-impact, cheapest solution. So here you go.
Which is what we should have guessed was going to be the case.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what Rockstar does, sadly.
Like I was a little like my only reason I didn't bring that up at the time was really that I didn't know if it was possible because like they seem to be having so much trouble getting any of this stuff working. I mean, they must have done some work to get the Switch version running.
Yeah.
PlayStation, maybe you just had to figure out how to like port, basic. But again, the code in that original game is supposedly such a giant mess that it probably was still pretty big job.
I'm guessing it's not going to be great, these ports.
No, I'm gonna guess that it's still gonna be playing it on backwards compatible on the Xbox One or Xbox Series X is probably still gonna be
the best way to play it.
Best choice.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, big disappointment there. Neither Matt nor I thought that this was going to be the case. We both thought that it was going to be a remake.
It's still surprising. Like if you're gonna do that, you didn't kludge together some kind of PC version.
Yeah, no PC version.
Even one that sucks.
Yeah.
Even like a definitive edition quality level thing. That's
remarkable. A step too far for Rockstar after the
so.
GTA trilogy definitive.
Maybe we'll get it later. Maybe it'll be like, here it runs at 40 frames a second for reasons we will never explain.
But take it or leave it.
It capped at 43. If you try to raise it, it just says "fuck you" and shuts the program down.
Also, next up, Matt and I's worst fears have been realized with Final Fantasy 16. Unfortunately, now Square Enix is putting the message out that it is disappointed in the sales of Final Fantasy 16.
Even though they apparently made the whole expense back in one quarter.
Yeah.
And the rest is all profit.
All profit from here on out.
But like... Square has the most unrealistic expectations of...
It's notorious for this.
Yeah.
It did it with Tomb Raider when it had Tomb Raider.
But it also goes back to long ago. I know, like, what was it... I think it was No Clip is pulling out all that old footage that they rescued from the CBS archives from like Giant Bomb's or GameSpot's old stuff, and they've got all these like E3 video. Like, there's like video of E3 that's like better quality than anything that's existed.
1080p.
Before. Yeah.
Why is GameSpot not doing something with that video? What are they doing? Why are they giving it to No Clip? That's so stupid.
Because they don't have the bandwidth to do anything with it.
What the hell?
They have no budget. They're gone.
GameSpot, I'll say this, is launching new shows like every day.
They're trying, but they don't think that's
the problem is it's the same three people in every show.
But also, like, try to pitch, like, we're going to put up E3 2005 footage as our big thing today to CBS bosses. Like, that's not
But you don't. You don't pitch it as the big thing. You just put it up.
But you're going to have to justify it.
You might as well get the play out of that. Like, that's money that you invested many years ago. You might as well get the views out of it in 2023.
The people doing that now didn't do that. They're
right,
kids.
But it's still, they own that.
Yeah, but they don't care.
That's the problem.
No Clip does care. So I don't really care what happens to GameSpot.
Yeah. I worked there, so I have at least a little bit of a
that ain't the
soft
place
spot.
You worked.
It's not. There's actually, I don't know if there's a single person left there.
I would be shocked if there
that
was.
Worked there when I worked there. I don't think there's even not even a Giant Bomb.
Surely all those people are dead now.
No, they're not. But not even at Giant Bomb is there anyone left who was there when I was there. Probably they're all gone now.
Yeah. Everybody's moved on. We're almost 50. I mean, it's but like one of the things that I probably won't surface, but one of the things I desperately hope surfaces is Square's. It was in the booth. It was E3. I want to say it was 2003, maybe, or 2002, but it was before either before or right after 11 came out, and they were using 11 as sort of their Trojan horse to launch Play Online.
I remember that
their online portal thing. And there was this video that only played if you went inside the booth and sat and watched their presentation in there, and it was this batshit video of like 5 years in the future or something. It was like 5 years in the future or something, and there were Play Online centers everywhere in every city in the world.
Oh, I think you mentioned this like a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I mentioned it a few
times. And there's like kids having trouble. These guys are having trouble beating this boss in Final Fantasy 11. So they text like the best Final Fantasy 11 player in the world, and he's like walking down the street. It's like this like 12-year-old white kid, and he gets like a pager message so he just turns into a Square Enix Play Online center and sits down and logs in and helps them beat the boss. And it's like basically implied that all online play in the world is done through Square's Play Online service now, and no one you only got to see that if you sat in that booth in that E3, and I'm like, I just want the rest of the world to see how out of touch with reality Square has been
for a long time,
really since they started production on The Spirits Within.
That's kind of, you're right, that's kind of where it started.
That's where they lost their mind. Like
when they built that huge server farm in Hawaii just to render CG, remember that?
And they made one movie
Yeah.
And shut it
Never
all
used
down.
it again.
And then told Sakaguchi to go away, please.
And now he's back.
Now he's back again. But it's
Sakaguchi back again.
yeah, it was just the Final Fantasy VII made everyone at that company lose their damn minds.
Yeah. Well,
And-
what do you think is going to come out of this? Do you think this means that, like, now we're going right back to the Fruity Tooty version of Final Fantasy?
I think the next one will probably be more traditional in that sense.
That's the word I was looking for.
I think, but also because there's only the one. This team can only do so much, and they're also doing Final Fantasy 14, and there's they announced a new expansion for that coming.
Yeah, big one.
So, and the whole the revamping of the graphics and all that, and was an Xbox version too.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
The thing I think they might start doing like an alternating thing.
I hope
Like
so.
Maybe the even numbered ones.
Look,
will
I'm
be
not asking.
this
Look,
team.
I'll be honest. I'm not asking that this is the way Final Fantasy is forever. Like, I'm okay.
Just every once in a while, written for someone over the age of 15.
Yeah, look, I realize that it has its fans that enjoy that other style, and like I don't want to rip that away from them. But like, can't we both be satisfied? Can't we alternate games so we're both getting what we want?
Or
Like,
even you don't even need to make it the main series. Like you could just have what was it, a Creative Business Unit 3 do like a side Final Fantasy : something. And it's like their own thing.
yeah, it doesn't have to be numbered.
It doesn't have to be the
entry.
numbered series. You want to keep the numbered series to be like 12-year-old afternoon anime bullshit. Go ahead. Like,
Although I would argue if it's not a numbered one, those spin-offs will probably eventually die.
probably eventually die, and also like they won't get the budget that 16 would. And that's one of the things that's cool about 16 is like it's done up to the nines.
Yeah.
In a way that normally you have to have 5,000 belts on your main character to earn that
And big
budgeted
shoes.
square.
Yeah.
So
Yep. So, any guess what Square Enix does? Do you think that's what it does? It alternates, takes turns?
in all seriousness, my answer to that is I don't care.
Yeah. I do. I want to play more games like Final Fantasy 16.
I don't care. We got 16. That's fine. Like I
You're
can
good?
go right back to not caring what Final Fantasy does
Okay.
until they decide to do something I do care about. There's
Fair
plenty
enough.
of other things to play.
Fair enough. Next up, Matt, have you been watching
Oh,
season?
Vincent's like, what comes out first, Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 3 or Final Fantasy 17? I think Part 3 comes out first.
Probably. Yeah.
The
Sales wise, it's like, even though they'll say, oh, that's because it was more grounded in like hard fantasy is why 16 didn't do well, they still know that that's where the bread is buttered.
Yeah.
Like so they're going to go back to that other kind of corny version, which is what the Final Fantasy 7 remakes are, let's be honest, which is why they haven't really resonated with me.
I mean, 7 is a guaranteed. I mean,
Money maker.
Guaranteed money maker, and it's nostalgia bait for something that we don't really have nostalgia for because I was in my 20s when that game came out, and that was put me a little far beyond the target audience.
We were a little more critical at that point in our lives. We weren't like the 13-year-olds who just let everything wash over us and then say it's awesome. And that's just the way you are when you're young. I was the same way. Everybody is. So,
Although some people grow out of it.
yeah. Well, we did. I think
did.
most people do eventually.
Judging by the internet, no, that's not what happens.
That's possible.
Go read some Star Wars fan groups. You want to see how people don't grow out of things.
Okay. Next up, Matt, have you been watching season 3 of The Witcher on Netflix?
No.
I got rid of Netflix. I told you guys that like a couple months ago, and I got it just for this month. And I already watched Black Mirror, which was unique this time because did you watch Black Mirror?
No.
Each one is like an hour plus.
Oh, they were mini movies.
Instead of being like a series of shorts. It was like 5 or 6 mini movies, and it was really good. And I really enjoyed the new Black Mirror. But then I also got it to watch season 3 of The Witcher. I waited until the second half of the season came out, and I got it so I could watch all that stuff at once. And I got about 3 episodes into season 3 of The Witcher and just lost interest. And it sounds like I'm not alone because it sounds like the viewership numbers for it are bad. Also, I learned this week that I didn't know, which was that the viewership numbers for season 2 were drastically down from season 1. I didn't know that.
Well, most people don't because Netflix doesn't share information.
Right. Well, season 3 is even worse than season 2.
Well, people are not invested anymore because they know Henry Cavill's leaving. That's
part of it. So the producer of the show...
The producer is an idiot.
Yeah, he didn't want to blame it on that. Instead, he blamed it on the lack of attention spans among American viewers.
I mean, he's not wrong, but also, like, that's not why people aren't watching the show.
Americans watch all the other shows on Netflix, but this wasn't a problem with their
Americans
attention
watch
span.
House of Cards just fine.
Yeah.
And that was way slower than The Witcher.
People watch Game of Thrones just fine.
Game of Thrones, yeah.
I mean, you can go on and on.
Did you know it's been 7 years since the Battle of the Bastards episode?
Really?
6 years since that the episode where Danny like burns the whole army with the dragon.
Oh, really? Dang. Time just whips.
Been almost a decade.
That's insane, man. That's insane. But anyway, there are hundreds of shows that Americans watch just fine. You're the difference. Yeah. You're the anomaly. Your show is the one they don't want to watch.
Because there's no target audience for it. It's like it's too slow and dull to hook someone who's just looking for a fantasy adventure, and it's too far away from the source material to hook the people who care about The Witcher to begin with, which is one of the reasons Cavill left the show, because the showrunners don't care about any of the material.
The source material.
The source material. So, like, who cares? Like that's why I mean, you know me, I love The Witcher. I have all the books, I have all the games.
That's why I'm surprised you weren't watching this show.
Because I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's boring.
Yeah. The first season I thought
and
was
I don't mean
great.
that in the sense that, like, oh, The Witcher's boring. I mean in the sense that, like, I hate the way Netflix has always structured its shows. I hate the way streaming has changed, how, like, oh, you can just do nothing in the middle because we want 13 episodes even though the story is 6 episodes. So there's going to be all this time. Like, The Witcher season 2 did some of that. And I, to the point that I didn't bother past, I think, the halfway point, and, like, it would never occur. I mean, I think Stranger Things is one of the most stone-dead boring things I've ever watched.
Really?
Like, I like season 3 okay, and season 1 was pretty good. Season 2 is one of the biggest wastes of time I've ever sat through.
Not much happened.
And I didn't bother to watch season 4.
You should. It's pretty good.
I don't
But you're
care.
right. There is one season of that show that, like, literally nothing happens.
I cannot emphasize how actively I don't care. Like to the point of, like, should I cancel Netflix the day season 5 of Stranger Things goes up just to say to them, I don't care about this stupid show? In part because they
got me. They suckered me back in. I gave them my $16 to watch season 3 of The Witcher.
I don't understand I mean, the characters are interesting, but the show doesn't focus on them. Like, season 3 I liked in part because it figured out that the relationships between the characters was the interesting part, not the storyline that literally goes nowhere. And they haven't even mentioned anything new information about it since season 1, episode 3. But The Witcher 3, The Witcher at least ditched the very confusing out of sequence timeline thing from the first season, which I was like, oh, it's not that hard to follow. I'm like, it kind of is.
It was, yeah.
Like, if you don't know the rules of the Witcher universe and how long sorceresses live and all this stuff, like the idea, trying to figure out that, like, there's, like, scenes taking place 100 years ago and scenes taking place like 10 years ago, and, like, there's no indication of switching. There's no color tone framing change. There's no clear indication outside of some vague references to the political machinations of the different kingdoms that you never actually really see. Apparently nobody's military uniform changes in a century. That's weird. It just didn't really work for me.
The other thing too is
even though I knew the story they were telling.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, okay, that's weird.
They also split up the third season into 2 sections, which I think probably was not a good idea.
No, I mean, they're trying to, like, Netflix is too afraid to do the weekly release thing for most of it, because they tried that for a while and it didn't work for them. But they also want to keep the shows in the kind of the zeitgeist longer, which only happens with staggered release. So I think that's what the idea there. They do that with animated shows a lot too.
Yeah.
The other problem I think The Witcher has is no one can decide whether they're doing the books or the games. Geralt in the books is a very, very different character from the character in the games. Geralt in the books is actually a little neurotic and very emotionally open, cries a lot, is very involved in things, and, like, is kind of
that's kind of the antithesis of
right. And in the games, he's basically Batman, right? Like, he's very gruff and soft and, like, kind of,
very matter of fact and not much emotion.
And the thing is, Cavill is playing game Geralt.
He is, yeah.
But game Geralt is kind of a difficult vehicle to tell book Geralt's story. Because a lot of what happens with book, you have to believe that he really, really loves Ciri, and that he and Yennefer and Ciri form this, like, kind of, like, family unit that's then destroyed by the Wild Hunt, which is why he's so driven in the third game, by the way.
Yeah.
The third game requires you to know more about the books than the other 2 games combined. Like, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't think that really comes across from what I've seen in the TV show, and you can tell that, like, the guy playing Geralt and the people writing the show and the people running the show are all kind of at cross purposes with each other, and it just doesn't quite gel.
So producer of The Witcher on Netflix, if you want to know what's really wrong with your show, there you go.
Yeah.
it's not short attention spans. That's just not the case. Like,
yeah.
And we knew that already.
Also, does that imply that, like, other countries are watching it in droves.
Right. Or that they have better attention spans. It's just Americans that have short attention spans. Like nobody else has cell phones.
Like all media went this direction, and all smartphones
like
took over the
TikTok's
world.
only in America.
It didn't affect anyone but Americans. Like I don't know about that.
Dude just covering his ass basically. So anyway, I don't know what's going to happen with season 4. Like, isn't who's taking Cavill's place? Hemsworth, right?
Liam Hemsworth.
Hemsworth, yeah.
Young discount Hemsworth.
Right, yeah. But
Liam Hemsworth is a fine actor, but like, it's just like he is always going to be. He's always going to be. We have Chris Hemsworth at home. Hemsworth, right. You know, it's like,
yeah. So we'll see what happens.
And I feel sorry for him on this because there's no way, like, no one's going to accept him as a replacement for Henry Cavill. Like, I'm not even a huge Henry Cavill fan, but like, that man is Geralt of Rivia.
A lot of people are agreeing with you that season 1 was weirdly confusing. Barry Lomax.
Like, you're going from Geralt of Rivia to Geralt of Wish.com, and it's going to be a tough transition.
Cinetyke says he needed to go online to have help with the timeline on season 1.
It's not very well communicated.
Yeah.
Which is another reason you can kind of see that, like, people like question, like, why was Henry Cavill having such conflict? Like, if you were looking at that, how they were constructing that, I would have conflict with them too, because that's very unclear storytelling.
Yeah. And then Shneaky asks, is writing and shows getting lazy as they know people on Reddit will fill in the blanks or explain things? No, I don't think that's why. No.
Also remember, like, writing happens now, especially this is one of the reasons the strike is happening and demanding writers' rooms and having writers stay on throughout the production of a show. The problem here is not that the writing is bad. The problem is the writing happens before the show even starts production, and then there's no writers around anymore.
Because they don't want to pay for the writers to stick around.
Yeah, at most you have a showrunner who's also a writer, who's like a head-ish writer, who is then altering stuff on the fly as you shoot.
And not consulting with the writers.
Whereas it used to be in the old days, and by old days I mean like before,
like 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 to 10 years ago, you would have a writer's room, and usually you'd have the head writer and the story editor and the writer's room producer and the writer of the specific episode available or sometimes on set when shooting to make changes usually on the fly. Yeah. Like, if actor's having trouble with his one line, they rewrite it right there. Like,
isn't it crazy how penny pinching these studios have become?
It's not crazy because the streaming model destroyed revenue in shows.
They're making enough revenue for it to be a bountiful business. It's just that they're not making money hand over fist now, and they don't want to pass the money off to the rank and file employees.
It is much lower than it used to be.
It is,
the broadcast distribution method was literally tens of millions of dollars more per show.
That's how this city was built on that money.
And syndication, right? Don't forget syndication rights. Yeah. Nobody lets anything go to syndication anymore, which is where a lot of residuals come from. But the thing is, the people in charge of the studios want to still make the same amount of money.
Right.
And that means they're going to have to
take it out of everybody
all the people who actually do the work.
Yeah.
And when also don't be fooled when they talk about the AI stuff. They want to talk about AI writing shows and producing shows and editing shows and generating things out of whole cloth. The main thing an algorithm does well is analyze trends and popularity and things that will go viral. In fact, if you've ever seen that stupid Wes Anderson does Star Wars viral video that one channel put out that blew up, it was like kind of the beginning of the AI thing, in terms of like generating content. They admit that they got the idea for Wes Anderson does Star Wars from asking an AI chatbot what would be a popular viral thing, film thing, and that was one of the other suggestions, so they went with that.
Wow.
The best thing an algorithm does, certainly right now, is predict what's going to be popular.
Yeah.
That is literally the job of a studio executive.
It is.
That is the studio executives are supposed to be the ones who are green light and red light things based on what they know will sell and be popular and make the most ad revenue. And that is the entertainment job most effectively replaced by an AI right now. So watch your fucking back, people. Like that is the irony that it's like, you want to argue for AI in production?
You're going to lose
next,
your job.
Motherfucker.
You're the one who's going to lose your job. Yeah.
And you're the one who's going to lose your job and never look back on it, because you try to get an AI to write a sitcom, good luck. Because an AI doesn't understand jokes.
Yeah.
Like, all
that's
the
one thing it can't do.
recompile.
Ask ChatGPT to tell you a joke sometime.
Yeah.
Or just it's only funny because it's so terrible, the joke.
Yeah. Or just ask ChatGPT to tell you the truth about anything.
Right. Or just be accurate.
It's like talking to a 16-year-old who's insecure about themselves. It's just like, why are you making? I know you're lying to me. Like, why are you? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yep. Okay, well, let's move on to the next topic, which is not a good one. Unfortunately, we got news this week that the team behind the Callisto Protocol has undergone a lot of layoffs. They lost 32 people in their studio. Maybe the most shocking thing that was exposed throughout the story is the fact that the Callisto Protocol cost $162 million to produce.
That's a lot of money.
And then sold 2 to 3 million units.
Less than that.
Yeah.
So what are you looking at if you want to make your money back? Just not even break. If you want to break even on that, how many copies of that do you have to sell?
5, 6.
Yeah.
Yep. After the marketing and everything is piled on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 5 or 6 million units. They got to like 2 to 3. So they laid off 32 people, which is a big chunk of the staff there. And I saw the person who had hired that team, who had assembled that team, was on Twitter talking about how they literally spent 2.5 years building that team for that game, that it was an all-star team, that they waited on some people to finish projects to bring them on, and that kept them from starting on the game when they wanted to start. All this, like, this HR person was just like, man, it was my life's work to build this team, and now it's just being dismantled. And he was devastated. Mm-hmm. He's like, you guys don't understand. This team was all-star. Like, the best I could assemble, and it took me 2 years to do it, and now it's just gone in the blink of an eye. He doesn't even work there anymore. Mm-hmm. The HR guy.
I'm sure. There was a lot of delusion behind the production of this game, it seems. The idea that this would sell more than what it did is kind of ridiculous.
I think at the time this Striking Distance was put together, Glenn Schofield was like a god. He had managed to take over the Call of Duty pattern of a game every 3 years with his studio and make, in all honesty, some of the best Call of Duty games while he was working on the IP. And I think at that point, he was just a god. And people were like, he can do no wrong. He worked on Call of Duty and made his games a success. How could he screw this up?
Well, because they were called Call of Duty.
Right. Well, he made Dead Space, the original Dead Space. So they're like, how could he screw this up? He makes Call of Duty. He made the original Dead Space. The
original Dead Space was not a runaway sales hit, though.
Right.
Like, it just has a great reputation because people who did play it loved it.
Really liked it. Yeah.
And then EA fucked it up.
Yeah.
The idea that you would think this game would justify that budget is madness to me.
I mean, when I saw that budget, my eyeballs almost popped out of my head. I couldn't believe it. I was like, are you kidding me? It should have been half of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's how much they spent on the Haunted Mansion movie.
Yeah.
Which was also a mistake.
The other thing, too, is the game is not that long.
No.
It's not like this gigantic opus that, like, takes you 30 or 40 hours to complete. That's not what this game is. Like,
no, it's pure polish and presentation.
Yeah.
Which is important, but, like, you got to know when to stop.
I think what this shows, though, is just, like, something that we always just kind of brush off or gloss over, which is the big bets that these companies have to make to create video games.
But also, they don't have to.
Well, this didn't need to be as big of a bet.
No.
But it's still, if you want to...
Especially a brand new team, brand new company, brand new IP, like, make something reasonable, and then, if it hits...
Then go all in.
Callisto Protocol 2 can cost $167 million. Like, it's...
He had the cachet to command the money, and they gave it to him, and it was a mistake.
Well, it's just, I don't see a world where this catches fire.
I don't either.
It's not like there's anything wrong with the game, like, to the point that it's bad or anything. It's just... That's about, you say that, sold like 3 million copies. Like, yeah, that's about right.
They were looking for Resident Evil 4 remake numbers. But
it's
Resident Evil 4 is one of the greatest games of all time.
Also, maybe if this was called Resident Evil Space,
right?
Or some shit, like
Space Zombies.
Do not underestimate how much
Astro
brand
Zombies.
Name helps with stuff like
no,
that.
Seriously.
I mean,
it may have been better to use an existing IP to create a game instead of starting a new one. Like,
I mean, there's no way to have it happen. But if you could have argued them and let you make this called like Call of Duty horror spin-off, whatever, like that could have worked.
Like, we're never going to get a Callisto Protocol 2. No. All the money they dumped into this is just water under the bridge now.
Yep.
Maybe someday they can sell the...
It'd be a weird little artifact that some kid who's like 3 years old right now makes a video about in 15 years.
On whatever the replacement for YouTube is.
On this game that his dad had that he played when his parents weren't around, and like it defined his horror taste for his whole life.
Yeah, so anyway, anytime layoffs happen in the industry, we send out our condolences to the people who are affected, and we hope that they'll land on their feet. But based upon what the HR person said, I don't think there's going to be a problem with any of these people finding new work.
No, they're all very good at what they do. It's fine. They'll be okay.
Although the combat director might have trouble.
Might want to, I want to have another thing ready in the portfolio on that one.
No offense to the combat director.
Although Cinetyke is right that they should have kept it tied to the PUBG universe.
Maybe
it couldn't have hurt.
It couldn't have hurt. But there's no narrative.
At the very least, it's so weird that it would have gotten more press.
That's true. People would have paid attention to it because, like, wait, this is PUBG? Like, what? There would have been a story there.
It was a completely meaningless thing.
Other than we've waited 10 years for a new Dead Space. EA is never going to give it to us. Oh, here's the guy who created Dead Space trying to give us the new Dead Space.
Here's a great remake of Dead Space almost at the same time.
Yeah. The timing of that was actually unfortunate for sure. Yeah. I don't know which was better, honestly.
Oh, I prefer the remake of Dead Space by far.
But I had already played it, 10 years earlier or whatever.
Sure, but I'd rather play a great game than a mediocre one.
Yeah.
And this game
was
a mediocre game.
Pretty much mediocre. Yeah. So anyway,
with better combat, it would have been different, and better checkpointing. Because I gave up at I can't remember where it was, but it was like a third.
At this point, right here, after the first combat.
No, it was a third of the way through, where I kept having. It was right. The checkpoint was right before a big upgrade station. And so every time I failed, I had to re-upgrade everything, and there was no way to save it after upgrading. And eventually I'm like, I don't want to spend a minute and a half upgrading all my shit before I go in and try again. And I just moved away from it. And that was it.
The crazy thing is
Let me save my fucking game.
Yeah. The crazy thing is I'm friends with Glenn Schofield on Facebook. And since this game released, he has been posting images of his artwork. Have you seen it? Are you friends with him on there? He is an amazing artist. But I do wonder if he has gone back to his former life as Solus from what happened with this game, because obviously he knew all along what was going on with this game. But all of a sudden, this art started popping up on his Facebook feed, and I'm like, why? Where's this coming from? I don't know. I think a lot of people seek comfort when they go through stuff like that, and I think maybe for him, his art is something that he finds comfort in.
It's also a good resume builder.
He's also very talented. He's also what do you think is going to happen with Striking Distance now, the studio? You don't think they're going to just disband the whole thing, right?
I mean, that's up to him.
Yeah.
I'm sure he could get the funding together for another game.
Yeah.
If he wanted to, but it depends.
But they're probably going to be like, yo, you get $80 million this time.
Or even less. It depends what he wants to do. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he could go get a job at any of the majors if he wanted to.
Oh,
if he wants to keep doing his own thing, I'm sure he has investors who would
he could get a job running the entire first party stuff at PlayStation. That's the type of job that he's lined up for next, really.
Yeah.
He's ran 4 studios.
I think it's up to him.
Yeah.
And really it comes down to do you want to keep doing development, or do you want to move into a cushier sort of supervisory role?
Yeah.
I know what my pick would be at this point.
Yeah. You get up to a certain age, it's like
you don't need to be in the trenches anymore.
Yeah, because you already did it. You paid your dues.
And working on, and the advantage of, obviously there's a freedom to owning your own development studio and doing whatever you want, not answering to corporate overlords and such. But as people like Cliff Bleszinski find out, that also means you're responsible for all these people's lives.
Right.
I have,
that's the hard
people
part.
Can say whatever they want about Cliff, but I talked to him right after Boss Key was basically announced to be shutting down, and I have never seen him more upset in my entire life. He was despondent that all these people were going to lose their jobs because he felt, I don't agree with that, but he felt it was all his fault, and he worked very hard to get everybody new places and use his clout to sort of push people in a new place. It's a very, very hard position to be in, and if you're used to sort of just the creative flow, and all of a sudden you're responsible for all this, if you're running a company, that's a big difference. It's a big stressor. It's a hard thing to do. And so if I were Glenn Schofield, I think I'd rather have that responsibility be on Sony.
Yeah,
and,
I'd agree.
I get a different, but it depends what he wants. Whatever he wants to do, I'm sure he can make that happen. But we'll see.
Yeah, Cliff is probably the most misunderstood person in gaming.
Absolutely.
What the average gamer thinks Cliff is not who Cliff Bleszinski is at all.
No.
His persona through the whole Gears thing was way different from who he really is.
Absolutely. Yeah, very much.
It's really bizarre how he got in shape.
Yeah.
And that's all it took. They're like, oh, he went to the gym.
Yeah, look out.
It's crazy.
Cliff lifted heavy objects and put them down again. He's very different now. And it's Cliff is a very kind man.
Yeah. Steady Decline says he's been posting art since the Call of Duty days on his Twitter. Right. But I'm telling you, like, it went from like a piece of art every 9 months to a new piece of art every day on his Facebook feed. He's still doing it. His art is amazing too. It's all like gory, like it looks like skateboard. It looks like skateboard graphics from the '80s, basically.
Oh, wow.
But he's very, very talented. Like, he's a great artist. So anyway, yeah, I think they'll probably keep striking distance around, give him a smaller budget, give him another chance, and if that doesn't work out, then
I mean, kind of depends who's left, right?
that's true. But I'm sure he was very prudent in who he kept and who he let go. And
but also, you know, that could lead to a situation where it's hard to attract new employees when it's time to staff up again, because they're like, well, what happened last time? But,
yeah.
You know, it's a hard thing to staff up. It can be a hard thing, especially if you're under NDA and you can't show the potential new hires, what they're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another company that was having trouble with that recently. I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember either.
It was some company that was like, we had trouble. People didn't want to work on the game they were known for. We were working on this other game, but we couldn't tell them about the other game because it's still not announced.
Oh, right.
And like, I can't remember what that was.
Sounds like Riot. People don't want to work on League of Legends, but they have 3 other games they're working on.
Well, we did finally see one.
We did. We'll be talking about that in a little bit.
Finally.
Next story. Nintendo announced its financials for the quarter, and it just killed it. No surprise there. And a big reason it killed it is because Tears of the Kingdom has already sold 18.5 million copies. 18.5 million.
But again, nobody wants single-player games.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be the best-selling Zelda of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, easily. It sold 18 million in 2 months.
That's Mario money.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. We're never getting a traditional Zelda ever again. It's never happening. Not. I could play taps for that. We're never getting a normal Zelda again.
Zelda is now basically Minecraft.
It is, yeah.
You're done. It's all going to be construction and
which is
horses.
A shame. But, you know, the good news is, like, Zelda used to be my favorite video game franchise, and there have been dozens of others that have popped up over the last 20 years that I enjoy a great deal. So
now, to be fair, they are, you know, at least releasing the or Ages and Oracles thing. At least that indicates they're not ditching the old versions completely.
Well, they know there's still people like me out there.
There's still suckers like us who want to play real Zelda games, but
yeah. Steady Decline, thank you for gifting those tier 1 subs, man. That's awesome. And Emperor Dread, thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime in the middle of the show, which we never get to thank people for because we're always preoccupied.
I also think that there may be side Zelda games that are more traditional.
Maybe.
To fill the space, because the other thing about
you can't take 8 years to make a game.
That's the other thing about this format is like it takes forever to make this game.
I mean, let's be honest. This game needs to sell.
It does
30 million copies because if you worked on it for 8 or 9 years, like.
But again, you've set a precedent where like the next time you make a game of this kind of Zelda, it all has to work flawlessly, just like this one does.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, look, I didn't particularly enjoy the building and all that stuff. But I am thoroughly impressed by the fact that it all just works.
Yeah.
There's almost no collision glitches. There's no
the craftsmanship in the game is
remarkable.
Impeccable. Yeah,
absolutely,
no doubt about
polished to. I mean, you can tell like they delayed that a year and just polished it.
Vincent says maybe by the 5th game in this series they'll have real dungeons. That'd be nice.
That'd be great.
And you know what? I'll be honest with you, Matt. That would fix a lot of stuff for me.
You give me 9 real dungeons that are. You could even.
I don't even need 9. Give me 5 or 6.
No, I need 8.
Okay,
8 or more.
I talked you down to 8.
Zelda games are 8.
Yeah, they
Zelda
are.
games are 8 dungeons.
Typically, yeah.
Wind Waker would have been much better received if it had more than 3 dungeons.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me 8 real Zelda dungeons that all build on each other. Like,
and I'm cool with the rest of it.
And you can just limit it. You can like the way the Underground was. Like, when you go in there, you can't use your building abilities.
Yeah.
But you have like dungeon items that solve puzzles in there and then apply to the next dungeon. It's almost like a micro game inside the bigger game.
Yeah.
Basically, you're putting a Zelda game inside whatever the fuck this is.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how I would like
that. Would satisfy both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the build. I don't like the whole like, look at the thing up here. There's a thing you want up on the top of the thing. How do you get up there? And the answer is not solve an intricate puzzle or do a cool like jumping mechanic gliding thing. It's build a giant ramp and lean it up against the fucking mountain and walk up the ramp. It's like, no, that's boring. I don't like that. It's stupid.
Yeah. So I feel like there's still people there who can build dungeons like that. I would hope so.
Absolutely. Of course there are.
I mean, there have to be.
Of course there are.
I mean, maybe that's what we get in the next one. Is something that is more in the middle that satisfies.
To me, that's
both.
that's the next step. Is like this. I mean, what else can you really
got this
do
done.
with this? Like you have this system. Technically, this system can do anything, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you add a couple new pieces. You add like little wrinkles in that regard. Maybe a new power that you can do. But really, the last step in this sort of evolution of Zelda is to bring back the
dungeons.
things that make it Zelda, which is dungeons
and the items that you get in the dungeon, so that
and
it makes
maybe,
the dungeon
I don't
fun.
know, combat that doesn't annoy the shit out of me.
Yeah.
That's less of a toy and more of a fight.
Yeah, I agree. They could definitely clean up the combat in the game.
And that could maybe only be in the dungeons.
Yeah.
Like you could keep the normal combat out here and have like specific dungeon equipment.
Yeah.
Delving equipment. You call it delving.
There we go.
Delving pack. And all the stuff in the delving pack you use in dungeons, and that's it.
Yeah. So another interesting thing that came out of Nintendo's financial report is that Metroid Prime 4 is still scheduled for Switch.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
I thought it was.
I'm not. Well, 'cause, as I've said,
They could have mysteriously left it out.
No, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to launch with the new system, but it's going to be backwards compatible.
Yeah.
I think Switch is. It's going to be a PlayStation 5.
I mean, you can't tease us for what has it been now? 4 years or more?
4 years. They announced this when they announced the system.
Did they? Or was it just like a year later? I think.
At most a year later.
Yeah, it wasn't too long after. Yeah, and here we are in 2023, still not playing Metroid Prime 4. But yeah, I think you're right. I think what this hints at is that it's going to be a dual system release.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And I would guess it's a launch game for the next hardware.
Yeah.
But if you own the old Switch, you can still play.
Worked out pretty well for Breath of the Wild.
It sure did. Absolutely. So anyway,
Oh
Nintendo.
no, Metroid Prime is all building.
Yeah. Oh God, what a nightmare. Although
You could absolutely have her do weird
Right.
stuff like that with a beam out of her arm. Like
also based on the sales of Metroid Prime in the past, I could see Nintendo being like, you know what? We need to add something.
you know what Samus needs?
Legos.
Legos.
God, I hope not. But I wouldn't be surprised, I'll just be honest with you. Next up, also tangentially related to Nintendo, this past week there was a clone of The Last of Us called The Last Hope on the Switch eShop. And the thumbnail for it was literally the key art from The Last of Us with just
Characters
hand-drawn,
repainted,
like... it was
It was a little obvious.
It was one of the most blatant ripoffs of a video game I have ever seen. And I have been in the dregs of Steam where people create these games in 2 days that are supposed to mimic some big popular thing. That's a cottage industry in gaming right now. I've never seen someone try to rip off blatantly a high-profile game like this. And of course, it was a piece of trash. It was a terrible game. The irony here, though, is that PlayStation reached out to Nintendo, and Nintendo obliged and took it down after okaying the game onto the eShop. That's a strange dynamic there. Like,
I don't think there's a lot of vetting happening over there for what goes up on the eShop.
the eShop is a disaster.
It's an absolute nightmare.
Why has Nintendo allowed this to happen?
I don't know.
Like, who is there?
I don't know. If you let me ask one question of like the top Nintendo people, like and like they're not allowed to lie to me, that would be the question. What are you doing with the why is the eShop full of porn and shovelware?
And consequently, that's also why it runs like dog crap.
Yeah.
Because it's trying to filter through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of crap games.
And they come. I just trying to find something that came out last week. Like
there's already 50 games.
50 games came out this week, and
I
it's all
know.
shit you've never heard of and will never hear of again.
It's insane.
It's unbelievable. It's all mobile ports of crap, and
I really feel bad for like these Nintendo-centric fan sites because we curate and we see everything, and they're covering this stuff.
Yeah.
They are diving into this eShop playing
like
these
could
god-awful games.
At this point, you could actually do a top 10 eShop games with hentai in the title.
Yeah,
like
you're right.
It's insane.
Yeah.
This is the company that used to not let you put
I know.
crosses in the games.
I know. It's so
What is
bizarre.
happening?
But you know what? The same thing's kind of happening at PlayStation too.
Sure, but PlayStation never pushed itself as family-friendly,
Right.
like curated Nintendo seal of quality.
But
shit.
there's a metric ton of shovelware on the
awful.
PlayStation Store too. It's it's so bad.
But PlayStation's better about forefronting the actual games.
well,
where-
also its store runs like Grease Lightning,
Right.
So they figured that part of it out at least,
well, in part it's because you're not stuck on Wi-Fi.
right?
But like,
yeah.
it's terrible. But like, I mean, at least they took it down. And it's funny to me that like Sony, I believe, still has Legend of Black Tiger up.
Right.
Which
It's still
is
there.
as bad, if not worse, than this Last of Us ripoff.
Are you surprised that Nintendo obliged and took it down? I'm a little
bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, I'm not in the sense that I would expect them to say no, but more like I would expect them to just not respond. You know, like doing their own thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's our business. We can choose what we want to put on our platform.
It was gross, but it's not like it wasn't
not illegal.
Actually illegal. You can't copy. I mean, it wasn't even. It didn't even play like Last of Us. It was just like a run around, hit zombies in a street thing. It just the key art.
It was the thumbnail.
Looked like Last of Us.
Yeah. I am surprised Nintendo took it down at Sony's behest. But it does feel like things are different from how they used to be. It feels like the big three all play nice with each other now.
More so
it feels like it's a friendly competition instead of like an angry competition.
Yeah, I think there's less of that between Microsoft and Sony, but like, although, I mean, why? Who cares about? I mean, why would either of them be competitive or weird to Nintendo? Nintendo's not in their arena.
It is in its own lane.
They're not really competitors anymore.
But anyway,
the other thing, the reason to really play nice on the Last of Us stuff is that the Last of Us is so high profile now.
With the TV show and everything.
So many people know what that is now that haven't even touched the game.
That's a good point. It has extended outside of video games.
The argument you could have made, I don't know what they said to Nintendo, but the argument I would make to Nintendo is like, you're going to get a bunch of people that don't know shit about shit that have seen the show and they think this is that show and they're going to associate that with our brand, and if they start doing that, then we have to take action to protect our brand.
Yeah, they could have just threatened Nintendo. It's like, look, we want to play nice now, but if you don't want to drag this through litigation, then take it down, and that may be convinced and force Nintendo.
And I think the argument I just said, like, that is a convincing grounds for litigation. Like, it's not. It wasn't like, it wouldn't have been like an empty threat. It would have been like, that really is a place, because of the popularity and breadth of Switch's audience, that is a place where people that don't know any better could have discovered this thing and thought it was real.
Well, my guess is Nintendo said the game has sold 10,000 copies.
It doesn't matter.
We've made $2 off of each one of them.
Yeah, you're not asking them to take down Mario.
No.
You know, it's
they're like, the cost-benefit analysis versus us having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on our lawyers to fight this in court.
Right.
Not worth it.
For an asset flip.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yep. Next up, got some news on Death Stranding 2, but not stuff that we wanted, which might be an update on the game, because right now all we have is this trailer. But Kojima has shared this week that because of COVID, he went back and completely rewrote the script for Death Stranding 2. He said because of the whole game is about connections and connecting with other people, and because COVID forced everybody to not be able to connect or connect via stuff like Zoom and Skype, that he felt that the game had lost its relevancy and he needed to find a different angle for Death Stranding 2. So that just tells me that Death Stranding 2 is going to be played entirely on Zoom.
Yeah.
You're going to have to join Zoom to play Death Stranding 2.
Most of Death Stranding 2 is just going to be a codec conversation.
Yeah. This is a little surprising to me because I figured that they were beyond pre-production for this game and that rewriting the script during COVID probably was not a feasible idea, but apparently not. This game may be further out than we think. Don't forget, the first Death Stranding is now like 4 years old. So we're kind of due for Death Stranding 2 already.
Like 2020, right?
I think it was 2019, wasn't it?
Death Stranding?
I thought so. I can check quick.
I don't think so. I feel like that was 2020. I feel like I remember that in plague times.
Yeah.
2019?
I thought it was.
I don't know.
Late 2019, Barry Gooster says. Toast 9 2019.
That made a huge impression on me, clearly.
Yeah, on both of us. So we're kind of getting to the point here where it's almost 4 years. Like, the game probably should be about ready for release, but if he completely rewrote the script...
the first one got made in a reasonable amount of time. Let's not ask for miracles.
That's true, actually. Yeah. They got... And they had to start a studio to make the game.
Yeah.
And all of that. So you're right. Probably 2.5 years of development. Which would make you think that Death Stranding 2 should be here by now, but...
Well, not if he's going to reinvent it again.
Yeah.
Which we imagine he was going to, because you can't really do that again.
Well, in the meantime, you put your game for sale on PC, that a little more revenue comes in from that. It's enough to keep you going.
It's still stuff coming in.
Kojima knows how to work it. Like, he knows how to keep the revenue coming in. And so, yeah, I would not count on seeing Death Stranding 2 in the near future. Again, we only have this one trailer so far, which is a good hint that it's not that far along. I would guess probably by the end of this year, though, the marketing should start picking up. Like, I think it'll probably be released next year.
Maybe.
Late next year.
We'll see what shows up at the Game Awards. That's your real canary in the coal mine.
Jeff Keighley's show, then you'll know. Anything that Keighley does, that's how you know what Kojima's up to, because either he's going to show up or he's not, based upon what he is up to. Next, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is coming to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
All right.
Which, this was kind of heralded by Respawn and EA. It's like, this is our first next-gen only game. This is us turning the page. We're not looking back. We're only going forward.
But then they figured out that Unreal scales, so why not?
Yeah. Or do you think that this might be that the game hasn't sold as well as they had hoped?
No, it sold very well.
Did it?
Yeah.
I actually don't know the numbers on this at all. Do you know how many it sold?
No.
I don't either, actually.
Not officially.
I don't remember seeing it, which is a red flag, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think it didn't sell badly. I think it may have not have sold as much as the first one did in its early months. Because the first one blew up.
Yeah, it did.
This one had a lot of technical issues that, I think held people back, especially on PC and PlayStation.
Well, this is the thing, is that it's still a disaster on PC. And they didn't mention anything about fixing the PC version or anything. They're just like, nope, now we're releasing for these 2 new consoles. And
PC version isn't important enough to do that with.
Apparently.
Because PC stuff sells a third of what console does. It's honestly not financially reasonable to spend that much time trying to fix the PC version. And I say that as someone who would prefer to play the PC version.
Yeah, with your beast of a rig.
It's just not going to happen. And the main thing, the main thing they could do to fix most of this is to implement DLSS. Mm-hmm. But because it's AMD sponsored, they won't do that, which doesn't make any sense because plenty of games do both of those things.
Well, my guess is eventually the deal runs out.
Well, already you've got fan mods that add DLSS support.
That's hilarious.
Which actually do fix most of the problems. Not because those problems aren't there anymore, but because DLSS is able to cover them up.
Cinetike says the last patch was May 17th. Mm-hmm. That's a long time.
The last performance-related patch. There have been more patches, but they were bug things.
Yeah, 3 months.
And the hitching's still there. It still is not functional to the point that it should be. But again, a lot of that is the fact that DLSS isn't in it. Mm-hmm. DLSS covers up a lot of flaws.
Yeah.
And it should be real. You should learn something. Everyone should learn something from, not us, but the people who make and publish games should learn something that if you're going to make that deal with AMD, fine, but you have got to put DLSS in there.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people
who play some kind of a caveat.
The vast majority of people who play game, because that doesn't happen with NVIDIA.
Yeah.
And whatever that AMD's version of DLSS is always supported, I think 9 times out of 10 on NVIDIA sponsored games. You cannot fuck over 2/3 of the PC gaming population with this tech that's expected to be there now because it's the only way you get any of this shit to run smoothly. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they learn anything from that. In the meantime, there will probably be fan patches that basically, bring it up to code, more or less.
The irony is I played the PS5 version and had really no problems.
No, the console versions are fine.
It ran great for me, yeah. I had really no issues, no bugs, none of that kind of stuff.
I played mostly the PS5 version, and then I played about halfway through the game on PC. And it's playable. Mm-hmm. It's not like it was at launch. It functions. But yeah, the game chugs on this planet. It's in certain areas. There's slowdown where there shouldn't be. It's not optimized to the degree that you would expect it to be, even on really powerful systems, and that's not acceptable.
Yep.
So, but again, PC versions of things just don't warrant the amount of money to put in to fix them post launch. It just doesn't happen.
So, do you think that it's better to not release it for PC at all, or just put these gimped versions out there?
I think it's better to include DLSS. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. That's the thing. If you had DLSS,
in future contract with AMD, you need a carve out to be look, okay, we're going to make a deal with you, but we need to work with this tech with NVIDIA because otherwise our whole project is doomed on PC.
Yeah. And if you're going to have something that's as CPU bound as so much of this game is, you have to work on that before. I don't know what happens in there that you don't notice this because everybody has these problems.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe you do hit a point where we have to because that's the thing. It's I'm sure EA wouldn't allow them to delay the PC version because they don't care.
Yeah.
The PC version doesn't make them enough revenue to warrant that kind of attention. Yep. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't blame the developers for that, by the way. That is just something that crops up, maybe something they didn't anticipate, but I guarantee you it's EA not giving them time to fix it properly or the money not to fix it properly, not the developers not caring about the PC audience. It's just a business reality.
Yeah. And then this morning there was a Pokemon Presents that Nintendo...
Oh, right. That thing.
And really there wasn't that much news that came out of it. Pokemon Stadium 2 is now on Nintendo Switch Online. The first DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet comes out on September 14th. And that DLC comes in parts. So the first part of DLC for Scarlet comes out on September 14th, pretty soon. And that's pretty much it. Like, I think they announced a couple new Pokemon today or whatever, but otherwise it was not high stakes. And then the final story for housekeeping in this episode is that, are you familiar with a streamer named Kai Cenat?
No.
Me either.
Well, now I am.
But apparently he's bigger than God on Twitter. This is one of the 0.5 guy that's making 76% that I have no idea who he is. Well, apparently he announced that he was going to give away PlayStation 5s in New York City, and it caused like a riot. And now he may go to jail. I didn't know that there were laws that could pertain to that.
There's incitement to. I mean, it's funny that they're willing to slap that on him and not a certain other person who caused a very destructive gathering a couple years ago.
Right,
but,
right. Think about that. That's crazy.
Maybe he should give away PS5s at his rallies. There you go.
They can get away with whatever.
That'll get the kids in. Young Republicans, they're so hip. It's very weird. Should also maybe tip you off about how desperate people are now to do that over a $500 item that none of them, I'm sure, can afford. Otherwise.
I mean, would you do that? Would you hop on the subway and go down to Times Square for a 1 in like 10,000 chance that you're going to get a free PS5?
Not a chance in hell. I might go to watch that happen, but I would not expect to be the person who gets the PS5. And God help whoever wins that PS5 and tries to get out of Times Square with it.
Oh, yeah, they'll murder you.
That's a lot of disappointed people.
You think influencers are going to learn a lesson from Kai Cenat?
No.
I'm probably not even pronouncing his name right, and I apologize.
Yeah, I don't know how it's Kai Cenat.
Kennett, who knows? Regardless, I guess he won't do this again because he is in danger of going to jail over it. So, probably not the best idea. And did he end up even giving away any of the PS5s?
As I read it, he didn't even show up.
Oh, he never even showed up.
I don't know if he was even there. I wasn't clear on the details.
I mean, the law there is
because
fuzzy.
The article I read on that was really weird. It was it was AP or Reuters, I think, but it was very vague.
I saw videos of the people acting like idiots.
They didn't even name him until like the second to last paragraph of the art. I'm like, who is this? Like, what are you talking about? Like, he was there apparently.
Oh, he was there?
Yeah, AJ the Legend Watson says he was there.
No.
Emperor
addresses his name will soon be defendant.
Did he not have the PS5? Like, what happened?
Sneaky says all you Americans are mad.
What was he gonna do? Just like throw the system out in the crowd and run? Like, very weird.
Yeah. So anyway, something to not do. Although I don't think anyone in our audience has to worry about getting 10,000 people to show up at Times Square with a tweet or whatever. But anyway, just something to keep in mind. And that's it for today's housekeeping. A little shorter than the last couple episodes, if you can believe it. We're ready to kick off...
A mere hour.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. We're ready to kick off GameFace 353 in earnest. But before that, here's a word from our awesome sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. As always, a gigantic thank you to LS Cream for sponsoring GameFace. Head to creamls.com/sifted. It's an awesome website, and it's got everything there you need. Awesome recipes, where you can buy LS Cream. Get yourself a bottle or 10 right now. And with that, it's time to kick off GameFace 353 proper, and we're going to start with, you guessed it, Baldur's Gate 3. Easily the biggest video game release of August. As I said last week, it was nice to
Early
not
access
have...
on Starfield is technically August 31st.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh.
If you buy the deluxe edition, you can start playing on the 31st.
That's right. That's the $35 for 5 days thing or whatever.
Yeah, and like a watch.
Yeah. But technically its release date is next month.
Mm-hmm.
And so the biggest game that has a technical release date of this month is Baldur's Gate 3. It is
all the From Software fans are like, ah.
Yeah. That's
This
true.
is bigger than a
It's way bigger than Armored Core 6.
Yeah.
And it's odd that it is, but it is.
Yeah, these are not like previously not huge IPs, really.
Yeah.
There's been a couple times when I've had to explain to some people what Baldur's Gate is. Because or like that, like this is not a sequel to the PlayStation games.
Right.
Like the Diablo action hack and slash games.
Although, if you look at it, someone playing this, you might think
that, yeah, but it's not. Like a lot of people were surprised that I know who got it were surprised that it was turn based.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. Well, although some people who played the originals were surprised it was turn based without real time with pause, which is fair.
Yeah. Yep. And this is a turn-based RPG set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. I would argue maybe it's a strategy RPG.
I mean, it's D&D.
Yeah, it is. It's Dungeons and Dragons.
If you want to play D&D as a strategy RPG, you can. If you put it on tactician difficulty, it is.
Yeah.
So that's up to you.
Yep. Matt and I have been playing this game. I don't know how many hours I played it because my Steam count says almost 30 hours. My save says like 7 hours.
Well, I've had to reload and redo things so often that, like, I think I'm like 10 hours in the game and 20 hours on the time
counter?
played.
Yeah.
Like, it's like...
And I think part of the reason that this is happening is because the game hasn't launched flawlessly. Although a lot of it is flawless. There are certain parts of it that are not.
I have had almost no technical problems on the game. Just a couple of quest lines that they don't dead end, but they get weird and confusing, and how to get out of them is sort of technical. And one of them was something that I remember running into at the end of 2020 in early access, and it's astounding to me that they didn't either fix it or
3 years of early
polish
access is insane, by the way.
2020 or 2020, I can't remember. I think it's been early access 2 years.
Yeah.
But there's a couple places where I'm just like, this is still like this? Interesting. Because they did change a bunch of stuff. Like the intro section is much shorter than it used to be. It used to have a much longer stretch on the Mind Flayer ship at the beginning. There was an outdoor area and a whole fight on the top of the ship, and then you had to drop down into it was a whole very different. But now it's like, get on with it. It was probably a good change. But
my problems are with saves, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And I found like characters standing in T-poses and little stuff like that.
There's little things, like there was a scene where in the camp where there was a bunch of people in camp, and then when it cut to my character, there were all the people had turned invisible, but all their like tankards were still being drunk out of, like moving up and down and being drunk out of. So there's little things like that. Considering the size and complexity of what they've made here, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Like,
the plot of the game, as you just saw the opening cutscene there, is you are on a ship with mind flayers, and they are putting these tadpoles in people's eyes. And once that happens to you, you gain almost clairvoyance. You have the ability to...
Normally that doesn't happen. You just turn into a mind flayer.
Right.
You have what's happening in this game is weird. That you get like kind of clairvoyance, and you can connect to the minds of other people with the tadpoles in them.
Yeah.
You get like a whole skill tree out of it. Like it's... And they talk about it in the game. Like, that's not normally what happens when you get a mind flayer parasite put in your brain.
Yeah.
Like, it is something weird is going on here.
And the objective of the game is you basically have a week to get the tadpole out of your head, because you're told that within around a week's time, if that tadpole stays in there, you will turn into a mind
Which
flayer.
is not true, because it has been more than a week in my game, easily.
Of real time?
Yeah.
In the game?
I mean, I have definitely slept more than 5 days at this point.
I see what you're saying.
Long rests are an overnight sleep.
Right.
And
I have not, actually. I've only slept like twice the whole time.
No, I've slept several times.
Oh, really?
Sometimes in the middle of dungeons. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's funny. I'm like, go back to camp. Okay. And we literally set up a fucking campfire in the middle of the dungeon.
Yeah.
I'm just like, all right, I guess we'll just do that here. We're 2 rooms away from a bunch of goblins, but just sleep quiet. Nobody snore, I guess.
And you're not the only one with the tadpole. You come across tons of other people in the world who also have the tadpole. And then there's like these clairvoyance battles almost, where you're both using your mind to like read each other's minds, and like... There are moments in the game where
You almost literally made the guy from the D&D cartoon.
Yeah. There are moments in the game where the other characters also use their tadpole abilities separate from you.
Yeah,
So-
whoever you've got selected, because like there's a whole thing with the tadpole abilities. Like you can basically use them to like read minds, but once you do it, that's a concentration spell. So like to keep that going, the character has to maintain concentration, and you can lose concentration if you fail a concentration save, if you get hit or something violent happens to you or whatever, and then you can't reactivate that illithid ability until after you've long rested.
Yeah.
But you can switch to another character and they can still do it.
Yeah.
So you kind of have 4 chances to use these abilities depending on who you're putting up in front as the kind of the speaker of the group.
Yeah.
Which is not something they really tell you.
That's true. Yeah, the tadpole also acts as like this other persona in the game. So you have these internal dialogues with you and this female voice, which I'm assuming is the tadpole talking or whatever.
It's not.
It's not?
It's someone else.
Okay. But they make it seem like like those communications are happening because the tadpole is in your mind, in your head.
I mean, I don't get that impression.
Really?
To me early on, I thought that was like a DM. It felt like it's a narrator. The subtitles say narrator. But later on, it turns out to be somebody else.
Okay. But there is this internal dialogue that's constantly going on throughout the game where you're talking with this voice in your head, and she's giving you insight into what's happening. She's giving you insight into what other people are thinking.
She's giving us insight. The character can't hear that.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, it's an internal dialogue.
It's a narrator.
You hear.
It's the narrator.
Yeah, but the character hears it, though.
She doesn't.
Well, for me. But yeah, he does. Like, the narrator tells the playable character, this is what they're thinking. This is the situation. This is how you should approach this.
Well, no, the narrator's telling the player that, but not the character. Like the character can't hear that in universe. The narrator's imparting what your character is learning about things to you, or how the character
I thought the narrator was talking to the character internally. Because she's telling him what to do and how to react to the people.
That's basically an internal monologue, yeah, but the narrator is supposed to be someone talking to the player.
Why does the narrator only talk when you're having an episode?
Because you are her. You are that character. And the narrator doesn't always talk.
My character's a guy.
The narrator doesn't always talk when you're having an episode. The narrator
almost always.
No, the narrator talks when you examine something or make a skill check roll or realize that this badge is from the flaming heart of whatever from Baldur's Gate. Like, the narrator is the narrator.
I don't feel like that at all. I feel like it's an internal voice that has something to do with the tadpole.
It is absolutely not related to the tadpole.
Really?
It is literally just the narrator of the story.
Then that's a really weird fucking way to do it, and a bad way to do it, because it confused the living crap out of
I
it.
have not heard anyone say what you just said about that.
Really?
At all. No one thinks
Because
that.
I'll be honest with you, it seemed to me, like you pointed out examples, I don't remember those. Everything I remember every time the narrator comes in is when you're having one of those mental episodes with the blue lights and stuff.
No, the narrator pops up every time you just need to know some information about the world.
Okay. Well,
I'm right, I promise. Like, that's what's happening. If you examine an object...
That is not what I got from the game at all.
If you examine anything with a skill-related lore or history or arcana or whatever about the magic mirror or whatever, the narrator is who tells you what you learn from that, because it is telling the player what the character is perceiving. And one of the things the character perceives is the pain or whatever from the tadpole in their head, so it is telling you what it feels like. That's the purpose. It's the DM, basically.
Weird.
But there is an in-universe sort of revelation about that later. Maybe you're not, but because you haven't long rested enough.
No.
That's it. It's a dream thing. It's a dream. There's a dream explanation for something that happens to have the same voice.
Oh.
I don't know if it's supposed to literally be connected or not, but I think it's thematically.
I have only slept twice in this whole game, and I did not even realize until I slept the first time that was the only way you get your skills back, your spells back.
Yeah, that's how you get all your abilities
I didn't know that until I slept the first time, and I was like, holy crap.
Well, some stuff like comes back from a short rest, but for unless you're a warlock, you only get spell slots back by long resting.
Yeah.
Which is annoying.
And that is a pro tip, people. Like, I struggled through long parts of this game fighting without spells because I didn't realize the only way. I thought, like, they were on cooldowns and, like, eventually they'd come back, and they just never did. Well, and then I slept, and I was like, holy crap, there they all are.
Well, no, this is a downside of playing with a controller as well. Is it because if you hover the mouse over a bunch of those skills, it'll tell you it'll come back after a short rest or a long rest.
I only played on the PC with a mouse and keyboard for this B-roll. So the first hour of the game or so, I played with a mouse and keyboard. I played the rest of this game on my couch with my Steam Link with a controller. And for the most part, it works fine. But there are some very specific things like that are a problem on a controller. Also, targeting things. Like there's a scene early in the game where a potential party member is trapped in a cage hanging from a rope. And I was playing with a controller, and like if I had played with a mouse and keyboard for that section of the game, it would have highlighted that I had to shoot the bottom of her cage to get her out.
No, it wouldn't have, because I'm playing with a mouse and it didn't either.
Oh,
I only found that by passing my mouse over it and a tiny like 3-pixel section highlighted as the floor, and I'm like, I can just shoot that. But then I was the camera in this game blows. It absolutely, like, I can't rotate it down enough to look at what I want to. I have to constantly move it around, like, see the thing I want to aim at. Like, I don't like how that works.
With the controller, you can, with the right stick, you can only control panning of the camera right and left. You can't control it up and down. If you go up or down on the right stick, it pulls in and out.
Which does, like, if you're closer in, you can see up more, and further back, it points down more, but there is no way to really look around.
I could never look at the bottom of the cage, and so I just left, and then she disappeared. So I lost the entire opportunity to add that character to my party.
My guess is she will show up later.
Maybe. Or maybe she's pissed off, and she's like, wants to kill me.
She's always pissed off. that character is always...
But literally, maybe she tries to assassinate me later because I didn't help her out of the cage. Like, who knows? But that was a problem that arose only because I was playing the game with a controller, and I had stopped playing with the mouse and keyboard. So there are some caveats to playing this game with a controller, though for the most part, it does play fine. And when you play with a controller, instead of having this like kind of top-down isometric look like Diablo, it plays like a third-person action-adventure game.
Yeah,
like
it tilts. I've used the controller a little bit. I think the controller works better for running around, exploring, and looking at things.
Because you can see in more detail.
Yeah, it feels more like a Dragon Age perspective. And then I think the mouse works better for combat. Although I do think it should have more modifiers for like every once in a while it's way too easy to accidentally click the ground instead of the enemy you want, and so you attack the ground and waste your turn, and that can literally be lethal,
life or death.
If the dice go the wrong way for you. So I think why would I ever want to attack the ground without intentionally doing so? Why don't you make that like hold a button to modify it before I do that? And there's no way to take moves back. There's no way to like undo things like that. So that's very frustrating, which is why you have to constantly save in this game.
There's the splatter I was talking about earlier. Like, you run into this girl, she's already got blood splattered on her face.
Well, she's been busy.
Yeah. Let's get back to the story, though, because this is an RPG. And I just want to say the writing, the voice acting, the facial animation in this game is incredible. This may be the best facial animation I've ever seen in a video game, Matt. It is amazing. Like, I don't know what tech Larian used. I don't know if it's proprietary. Whatever it did, it's incredible. Like, the character models in this tell the tale. You don't even have to hear what they're saying to know what's being said, just by their facial expressions alone. Like, I've been blown away by this. And the writing and the voice, even the most bit characters, the voice acting is incredible. Like,
yeah, production value is through the roof.
Oh, man. Just ridiculous, like, how good it is. And again, this is an RPG. It's supposed to be story-driven, though I would argue it's not all that story-driven.
It's more exploration and combat-driven.
Yeah.
It's, it's D&D.
You don't get, like, really long-winded cinematics in this that go on for, like, 12 minutes or whatever.
No,
like,
once the beginning happens, there's some good cinematics there. And, like, really between acts, there are significant
There's big breaks. But otherwise, for the most part, you're just seeing these incredible real-time facial animations. And the plot is still great. The decisions that you make, like, for some reason in this game, man, it is hard to make a decision. So there's one scene where a kid tries to give me a ring. Right. And he's like a little street ruffian. He's a swindler or whatever. I'm not worried about that part of it. I'm worried about, like, the ring has, like, a poison barb in it or what. Like, he's trying to give me a free ring. I need a ring. I don't have a ring yet in my inventory that I can use for my inventory for my gear. I want that ring so damn bad. But I sit there for 5 minutes being like, if I'm going to put the ring on and it's going to poison me and it's going to kill me, does it have some, like, crazy incantation on it that later on I'm going to be in combat and I'm going to turn on my allies and kill my ally? Like, my mind just whirs with decisions in this game. And a lot of it was because, like, some of the decisions that you make, you can't see the consequences coming at all. Like, there's a lot of times where I just want to go back into an old save in this game because I don't like what happens. That I didn't feel like the game gave me enough clues to tell me that, like, hey, if you make this choice, this may send you down this path. Like,
that happens constantly in this game.
Like, you can't see the path. No. Like, and
it's like things will happen, and you're like, oh, I guess I'll see this. It's like, oh, that's not what would that seem to imply would be.
Not at all.
Like,
it happens a lot.
And it's like, on one hand, it's like, oh, I mean, it's very impressive, the scope and breadth of what happened. You know, like that scene you're talking about with the kid with the ring. Like, I had to do that twice because I basically hit a part of the storyline that didn't work anymore. And so I'm like, well, and then I reloaded way back and had to redo a bunch of other stuff, and in the meantime did that. And so while there's a bunch of things you can do. You can take the ring, you can refuse to take the ring. I took the ring, and because I had sleight of hand, duplicated the magic trick the kid did with the ring, and I passed that roll because you're always rolling.
Because you get roll. That's
constantly
the thing.
Roll die.
Conversations, decision making. A lot of times you make a decision, you have to roll the dice before.
You have to roll a die to see if you're allowed to do what you want to do.
Right. Yeah.
Which is stupid.
But it is like, Dungeons and Dragons.
It is Dungeons and Dragons, and like that's part of the problem, and we're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
But. So the first time I did that, and I failed a passive perception check while that was happening, and I looked at the inventory of the shop the kid had, and then it turned out I was pickpocketed. And then I had to go on this whole thing to find where where the guy had gone and where my stuff went.
I caught the pickpocket.
And, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like I did all that and find the thing, I got there, and then the conversation with the leader of the pickpockets dead-ended, and I couldn't do anything about it. So my options were to sneak in and steal my stuff back, which I did not have the ability to do because I don't have any stealth on my characters at this point. Or I could murder all the children in the pickpocket den and take my shit back, which was kind of out of character for me. And in the end, as related to something else, I had to reload a save and redo that whole section. And this time I passed that perception check, and instead of that, I caught the pickpocket, and the whole quest changed. Suddenly I had an objective from the leader of the thing, and I had to go do this other thing. But I couldn't do that because it was related to 2 other quests, and if I did that, I'd piss these people off.
Right.
Like, the amount of variety in what can happen if a random die check goes a different way is very impressive.
Because it's all tangled together.
I don't even know where you begin designing.
I don't either.
This stuff.
It's pretty amazing.
Like the decision tree on this game must have been the whole building they were in. It's amazing.
I'm here just in time with the B-roll, leveling up for the first time. Leveling up in this game is interesting because you get your usual stat increases and whatever, but then you need to also decide things depending on the character and the character class. Sometimes you need to decide on, hey, I have 2 new spell slots. Which spells do I want to put into these slots? Sometimes it's like, here.
These are all the same choices you make leveling up in normal 5th edition.
Yeah. I mean, it's Dungeons and Dragons. But it's to me, it's different from a lot of RPG video games. That's typically not how you handle leveling up your characters. It's unique and different, and it allows you to really shape kind of not just your main, the one that you typically play as, but also the rest of your party members, which, by the way, you can play as any of them at any time, and you can make them your main if you want to.
Yeah, you can pick one of the pre-made characters as your main. You do not have to create an original character. I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, once you're out in the field...
Like, also, you're kind of... That also does mean that your character is going to be redundant at some point, because you're going to get a character...
You're probably going to pick up a paladin.
Yeah.
Like, I started as a paladin. Eventually, I'm going to come across a paladin who wants to join my party. But right now, like, I'm a paladin. I have a magic caster in my party. If I want to play with projectiles, I can just easily squeeze left trigger... And there's a little menu on the left-hand side there. You select which character you want to take over, and you take them over, and off you go, and then you're playing as that character, which is pretty slick. Once you get into the menus, too, and you're looking at gear and things like that, that same interface on the left is there. So, again, if you're using a controller, you squeeze L2, you cycle up and down, you choose whatever you want, and that'll
Although I do think the inventory system sucks.
I'd agree.
Like, it's not granular enough. It's too confusing to know where things go. There's not enough ways to organize stuff. There's no simple, like, just sort things.
There's no sorting. Yeah. You can't sort things by power.
You can sort things by weight, type, recency, and value.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
So if you're just looking at this big pile of stuff, and this inventory, you do have a lot of stuff. Yeah. Like, trying to figure out, like, do I have something that's better than what I have right now?
There is a weight limit, but, like, you can carry a lot of stuff. And anything you can't carry, you can send directly back to your camp, which is pretty great.
This is also a little bit like Remnant 2 that I talked about in last week's show, where you don't get a ton of like gear. Like you're not constantly getting new swords or new shields. Or
the loot kind of sucks.
The loot sucks. It's very slow, and the leveling up.
But when you do find something,
so slow.
But when you do, well, yeah, I mean that's again D&D.
D&D.
But
yeah.
and the other thing you run into on this, especially, is like in 5th edition. Characters don't really start to feel like themselves until level 5.
No, okay.
Level 4, some things, but level 5 is where level 4 helps because that's where you get your feat, one of your key feats usually, or that's where the spells really open up and you can cast 7 slots. You know, that's pretty good. Like, yeah, that gives you some variety for like the wizard and stuff, but and the cleric, I think. But like. Level 5 is where, like when if you're a ranger, level 5 is where you get your double attack, where you can attack twice in a round, which is amazing.
It takes a long time to get to level 5 in this game.
Level 5 is a distant goal when you start thinking, but it's like you got to get there because that level 5 is basically where if you're playing the pen and paper game, you're basically like once you're at level 5, your character's level 5, you can start doing the real shit.
Yeah.
Levels 5 through 12 are sort of the sweet spot of 5th edition D&D, and in fact, a lot of DMs will start you with a 5th level character just to skip the bullshit.
Yeah.
This game does not skip the bullshit.
It really doesn't. It stays true to the source material.
Yeah, this game is here to simulate D&D as best it can, whether it makes any sense or not.
Yeah.
So
the other thing too is about your party is like if you just play it organically, you get a 4-member party within the first hour.
Very quickly. I mean, I had 5 members. Plus, including my created character, very fast.
Yeah,
within 2 hours.
Yeah,
like
that part of it, the pacing.
You have a
good.
Functional party, no matter which class you pick, you're gonna have a functional party very quickly. They're good about that.
And the party members are eclectic. Like they really run.
Yeah.
Like I have
and very few of them like each other.
They all hate each other. But like I have one who's like a crackhead, basically. You have to keep feeding him magical items to stay alive. Right. So every time you get like a relic,
he's a high-end crackhead.
Yeah, he's high maintenance.
Very,
is what
very,
he is.
Yeah, very expensive.
Because the stuff you have to give him, it costs a lot of. It's worth a lot of money. Like
and you don't find that stuff too often.
Yeah, because here's the thing: I didn't have a helm. Like, I finally find a helm, and like 10 minutes later, he's like, I need the helm, bro, or I'll die. And I had to give him my only helm that I had. I'm like, and he like absorbed it or what. I'm like, F you, dude. Like, it took me like 15 hours to get that stupid ass helm. Like, but he's a crackhead. You have to keep feeding him magical items to keep him alive. And then there's a vampire that you discover eventually that's in your party, and like he wants to suck your blood to stay alive, and you have to make a decision on whether you let him to keep feeding off of you throughout the entire game, or he has to go out and like kill animals or whatever. I chose the animal route. I'm like, dude, you're not sucking my blood every like night.
I did let him suck my blood the first time, and
really?
And he killed me.
Oh, he did?
But the game just continues.
Like you didn't die?
No, I'm dead. My character was dead, but it was like the game just went on.
What?
I could just keep playing without my character.
Oh, wait, your character was gone, though.
Dead.
Oh, okay.
I could resurrect her if I had a scroll of revival or something. But like, and no one really cared. I didn't become a vampire. Like, no one like really reacted, being like, oh, there's a vampire. Like, that's weird.
Oh, I told him no. I was like, no.
You tell him no, and like he just kills a deer or a hog. I think you find the dead animal later.
Well, he cries about it.
Yeah, he's not happy about it, but I don't like him anyway, so I don't care.
Yeah. He's not very.
You're also free to just kill him if you want. Like you can kill. He's a vampire.
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
One of the options is kill him. Like you can totally kill him and fight him and kill him if you want to. Like, and that's where this game I think is awesome. Like, I've not played enough of it yet to know whether all this stuff is going to pay off. But if even half of it does, holy crap! Because to your point earlier, it's like the tendrils of like these other quests overlapping with a quest that you're on, and like how the dominoes are going to fall, and that's going to affect. It's like, again, like every decision I make in this, it's like my mind just goes into like overdrive and steam comes out of my ears because I'm like, what is this going to impact on down the road? And eventually, I just have to give up. I'm just like, you know what? Screw it.
Right.
Like,
at a certain point, you just have to kind of like go through, do your best, play your character as best you think that character would behave, and hope that it turns out. Except that there's 4 million D20 rolls between you and playing your character the way you want to play them.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest problem for the game.
Yep.
Because there's not really freedom in this game so much as there's random.
Yeah. And there's a lot of random in this.
And I have reloaded a save. I have probably loaded saves on this game more than the last 4 RPGs I've played combined.
Me too. And I save all
You
the
have
time.
to. The autosaves are not sufficient in this.
Oh, I got burned. My manual save got corrupted. I lost like 4 hours of progress on my manual save.
Yeah. It's
I saved the game.
I don't even know how that would happen.
I don't
That's
either.
a remarkable bug.
I saved the game, shut it down, ate lunch, came back to start playing again, and there was a huge update. This was on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And it was gigantic. It took like an hour just to download the update. When the update downloaded and installed and I started again, I loaded up my manual save and I had lost 4 hours of progress off my manual save. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh crap. So I started going through the quick saves and they were all saved at the same point. All my quick saves and my manual saves started at that same place. And I had to play
Very weird.
It is weird. I had to play it all over again. So that's something to keep in mind. Now I'll say this, since that update on Sunday, I've had no problems. I've made back my progress. I've continued to make new progress, and I have not lost any of it. So maybe they fixed it with that big patch. I don't know, but I haven't had the issue since. But I did have to replay about 4 hours of this game, which I was not a fan of, although it did give me an opportunity to go back and try some of the choice-based stuff and see the other outcomes. And I was blown away by what the other outcomes were. I was like, wow, you guys went all in on that. Like, that's how this game is. Like, it's the stuff, like, you think, oh, I'm going to try this or I'm going to try that. And it's probably not going to, and it does do something. Like, it does have a ripple effect. It does do
something. It's just, so, like, I mean, part of the issue here for me is that I hate dice. I hate dice with no mitigation factor.
Yeah.
I hate randomness when it comes to trying to role play something.
Vincent's asking if we're playing with karmic rolls on.
Of course I am. What do you think I am, a rookie?
What does that mean?
That means that theoretically, it's an option you check in the game, in the options, that theoretically makes it so the dice won't roll bad for you repeatedly.
Oh, I don't think I turned that on or off.
If you've rolled bad thing, it's on by default.
Okay.
If you roll things bad, or it won't. That's not true.
It's supposed to replicate the DM, I guess.
Sort of, yeah. But I have had my character miss 9 times in a row in combat. I critically miss in this game more often than everyone else in the game, including the enemy's critical hits.
Oh, I've missed at least double the amount that I've landed a critical hit. At least double.
It's remarkably dumb.
But here's the thing, Matt. It is D&D.
It is, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
So the problem here for me is that, like, this applies to combat, it applies to the skill checks with, like, dialogue and stuff. I'm trying to role play this character. I shouldn't have to roll a die to see if I know an arcana thing that's my specialization, and then I just don't. And the problem is, if you're playing a tabletop D&D, the DM, especially in modern Dungeons and Dragons, is going to either fudge that a little bit or still give you kind of the tidbit from the failed roll that you maybe need to kind of figure things out differently. Mm-hmm. This game feels like it gates things out much more directly because it's a computer. It doesn't have the ability to really do. It
has no feelings.
To me, playing this game is like playing a really good D&D module with the biggest asshole rules lawyer DM you've ever met, and it breaks the fun of it.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you.
So I'll just say it right now. I don't like this game very much.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that.
This is one of the biggest disappointments I've ever had in a video game.
I'm surprised to hear that.
I don't like how much randomness is in it. I feel like it doesn't. It simulates the page rules of D&D without creating the phenomenon and the feeling of playing D&D.
Well, it feels exactly like what it was like to play D&D.
Oh, it's like playing with
I was 8 years old.
Yeah, it's like playing with your asshole friends who won't deviate from the rules in second edition back in 1984.
Yeah,
maybe if you're a Stranger Things fan.
Yeah,
that's what it's like.
I mean, that's when I played D&D, honestly.
But I feel
that's the way it was.
But I constantly feel like the dice are in the way of me enjoying and exploring the story.
Yeah,
and I hate that.
I agree with it. I agree with that.
And because of that, I'm constantly save scumming and reloading to see what the other option would be if I didn't fail that. And sometimes I'm like, no, I'd rather fail that because this is the more. But there's no way to tell until it happens, and it's just my actual playtime in the story is half of my playtime of the game because I have to keep redoing things because I'm not happy how they turn out, or because that's not what I thought I was choosing when I chose it, or I chose it and the dice didn't roll. I ran out of inspirations or thieves' tools or whatever the fuck I needed to like fix that, and I rolled the three numbers that would have made me fail. To know what the magic thing was, even though that's my whole specialty as a character. What did I even build the character for that way otherwise? Mm-hmm. Like it's I've seen people. I didn't think of this before I read it, but I saw people say it's much more like Divinity Original Sin in a weird way, because those games also rely on dice checks to basically decide everything, including who wins an argument between your characters sometimes. And that's something, it's like how that game is built, but it's not really, it kind of misses the spirit of how D&D is played today, which is basically house rule to within an inch of its life for the group that's playing it.
Yeah.
Which means that what I'm probably going to do is mod this thing to death.
And have no guilt over it at all.
No, I don't. Yeah. I will slap a god mode on this thing and never look twice. No, not even a little bit. Like, I do not care. Like, if I'm like building up this strat and trying to put you over here, and you're gonna go over here, you're gonna hit this. You have an 85% chance to hit this thing, and you don't. What am I doing? What is this, XCOM? Like. Because XCOM is less frustrating than this.
I would argue that the combat should be more like XCOM and less like this game.
It took me 4 hours to save scum my way out of a goblin stronghold at one point, because I had no choice. I'd run out of like options to convince someone. The last save was 2 hours ago.
Yep.
And like I was just like, I don't know what else to do, so I'm just going to keep reloading the save until I win the fight.
I got caught in a save loop. A battle started. I did not realize that it was going to be impossible, and I saved as soon as the battle started. And as it turns out, I had no chance of winning the battle at all, and I couldn't run away because you cannot run away in this game. Meaning, there's no like option that you can select and click to run away from a battle. You can try to run out of the battle area. That has worked for me like once.
Yeah, I tried that once because I was in a dungeon, and at the end of the dungeon, suddenly 3 enemies double my party's level showed up, and you can't fight that.
Yeah.
So, and they even popped up a thing that said, like, you can run. Like, you can get out of the area and escape the enemies if you need to flee. So everybody ran for the ladder at the, like, 2 rooms up. They're getting, hit in the back
the whole time.
And I get 3 guys up the ladder, and the last character doesn't quite have enough action points to get, or movement point to get up the ladder, to interact with the ladder. And she gets hit twice, goes down, gets hit a 3rd time, and dies.
Yeah.
Dead. Like, and
Stuff
I can't send anybody back. So I just
Yeah.
reloaded at the because the last save was at the beginning of the dungeon.
I was trapped, though. My manual save was in that battle.
Yeah, it's not very good.
There's quirky stuff like that happens.
And, like, it's interesting to me that, because I'm going to be interested to see, especially when it hits console, how many people are going to be like super excited and buy this thing and not realize what it is.
Yeah.
Because this ain't Dragon Age.
It's D&D.
It's D&D.
Like, for better
all
or
the
worse.
good and bad. Yeah, exactly. For all the better and worse.
It took me back.
It's D&D with no mercy is what it is.
But that's how when I played D&D.
Right.
So,
but that's why D&D is popular
has
now.
evolved.
Because people stopped playing it like that.
Right. Well, that's why I stopped playing it. I played D&D from like 8 to like 10 or 11. And then I got sick of it. Like, you're right. Like, if you have a jerk dungeon master who has a grudge against you, maybe you beat him in basketball yesterday. Seriously, I mean, when you're 8 years old, that's the type of stuff that determines whether people treat you like crap. So I would beat some guy in basketball. The next day, I'm sitting at his table playing D&D, and he's like, nope, here's this demon-esque princess with 9 million points, and she looks at you, and you die, and your character is dead forever. Like, I got tired of that crap. Or just the rolls. Like, oh my god, I only need to roll a 5 or higher, and I roll a 3. And my character's dead. This character that I've been building for, 2 years, and I drew the crest for, and, like, had this tattered piece of paper that I carried to my friend's house every weekend to play. Like, this game took me back to all of that. And for a moment, it was awesome. To just be taken back to that moment in time when you're a child and you're so innocent, and like, for a moment, I was sitting at that table with my friends Scott Simpson and Darren Haddix, all the people I played D&D with, and then the game kept going. And the nostalgia wore off, and I'm like, this is just the way this game is. And then it reminded me of why I quit playing D&D when I was 10 or 11 years old and never went back. I'll say this, Matt, hearing from you that it has evolved over time and DMs have learned to be human beings, it actually attracts me to kind of think about playing it again. Like,
and 5e is a very different experience. It's much less. I mean, 5e is more forgiving, even more than. I mean, there's no THAC0, there's no any of that weird shit. But it's all centered on the D20. Obviously, the D20 is called the D20 system for a reason. But again, most DMs are not going to make you roll a D20 for every single conversation choice you make with any.
It's overkill.
Like, you got to do it. You do it for like big stuff or things. But otherwise, you sort of let it ride. And this game doesn't do that. And I think it goes too far with it.
Yeah, the dice pop up all the time. Like, I'll say one thing.
And you can only hold 4 inspiration, which are your re-rolls. So it's like. I noticed one of the first mods that went up for this game is something that removes the inspiration limit, because that's the first thing everybody they want to be able. Because every time, basically, inspirations are things where if you do something that makes your different character classes happy, or like, you know, fits their character class really well, you'll get an inspiration for, like, you know, doing something soldier-like, or like that kind of, if you're a soldier, if you're doing something, like my character has a noble background, so if I do something that is something like a noble would do, although it's funny because, like, a lot of times it's like, oh, you are magnanimous, but it's like, really, like, shouldn't it be like if you're an asshole to a peasant?
Yeah.
It's like, that's not what happens.
Yeah.
So you get an inspiration, which lets you re-roll a d20 check.
Okay.
But, like, which is another thing it doesn't really explain to you very well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff it doesn't explain.
It simulates D&D's 5th edition rules very well, but it does not explain them very well. And I feel like if you don't, you do not need to play Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 to understand this game at all. Like, it takes place 100 years after Baldur's Gate 2.
It's a standalone
It has
story.
nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
You're fine. There's an argument to be made. It shouldn't even be called Baldur's Gate 3. But again, you want to call Baldur's Gate 3 because
for obvious reasons.
Yeah, it has cachet because 1 and 2 are considered 2 of the best games in the genre. But, like, if you don't know D&D 5th edition, you're going to struggle in some places because it really seems to assume you know some things.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I'm sure there's a lot of crossover. I do know 5th edition pretty well, but even in this, I'm just like, oh, we never played with it like that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we just, like, didn't use because it's annoying.
Yeah.
Thank God it doesn't use limited arrows.
Yeah. There's some other quirks, too, about this. Like, some of the autosaves are kind of brutal, man. Like, if you die...
Oh, you better be quick saving constantly.
You got to go way back sometimes.
And I'll tell you that, like, the autosaves are not...
reliable.
Sufficient.
Yeah.
Like, hard saves, quick saves, constant. Every time, before you do anything, basically.
Yeah.
Especially before you have a fight. It does tend to autosave before a big fight.
Like,
although that's kind of a spoiler, because sometimes you see it autosave and like, well, I guess something's going to happen. You know?
Yeah.
If it was autosaving constantly, it would be a little less issue. But all the other thing I'll say is, like, when this PS5 version comes out, I hope they're leveraging that hard drive, that solid state drive, because the load times on this are going to be a nightmare if you're playing this on console and it's not up to snuff.
Yeah, there was one time that
No wonder this requires an SSD.
Yeah. There was one time where I went, although I'm playing it on a mechanical hard drive with very little
You're having
problems.
a pretty decent performance time with a very dated
old rig.
Yeah.
It's amazing what this game does with my rig. Like, this B-roll is my rig.
That's actually a good point. If you're looking at this for PC and you're like, oh, my computer's too old, but it probably isn't too old.
No, all this B-roll is running on my old computer that I built when I launched Sifted like 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, this is like a Witcher 3 era PC.
And I went and looked at Matt's PC today when I got here to see how much better it looked, and it does look better. And he has state-of-the-art bleeding edge rig. But not that much better. This game looks and runs great on almost any rig.
Kevin Roth is asking a good question. How are the dice rolls different than Disco Elysium? The dice rolls in Disco Elysium are not success and failure so much as they are different takes on the same thing.
Shades.
Failing a roll in Disco Elysium is entertaining because it goes a direction you didn't expect, and it's all driven by that. Here you just
die.
Here you just don't get to do what you want to do.
Right? Yeah.
At Disco Elysium, you might fail some check, and like you say something like, "Are you crazy? We're not going to do that." And you're like, "But I am a superstar." And like that, it builds to this like thing that's the entertainment section of the game.
Yeah.
Whereas if you fail a check like that in this, sometimes it's like I don't believe that. You're not coming in here.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you're like, now what? Because I can't pick the other options now. And so I guess I got to go find another way in. And it's just like, why don't you just let me fucking say what I want the character to say? And there's a couple of people I showed this to. They're like, it's weird that the character doesn't talk.
Yeah, silent.
She has. I mean, she talks when you look at things. She's a little like combat, but in the dialogue in conversations, they don't
say anything.
Doesn't talk.
Yeah,
and I notice eventually I'm like, oh, it's because when you fail like a lore check for like an Arcana conversation thing. Otherwise, they'd have to make up your character saying something incredibly stupid that doesn't convince someone. So you have to imagine in your head that this dialogue that's all driven by dice stuff that's why you can do that in a BioWare game, because it's just like you either can or cannot say this thing based on your skill already. Yeah. Whereas this how would you every single dialogue choice involving this would have to then...
Well, look, I failed there.
You failed that, yeah.
All I needed was a 7.
I saw some... So that guy in that portal is actually important. I saw somebody who didn't manage to succeed to pull it out for like 40 hours.
Really?
Like, he didn't get that character till like he was like...
Wow.
He was like level 10 or something.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
So that's why I think the character you missed in the cage is probably out there somewhere and will join you eventually at some point, because... They do tend to just make it see like it'd be like in that kind of important stuff like that, but like little dialogue choices. I'm like, my character would know that.
Well, look, they make me roll. They don't let me roll again, but they bump the number up I need to hit, and this time I hit it no problem.
Yeah.
This is you're seeing right now the randomness that we're talking about with this game. But I'm lucky that they let me try it again.
Oh
here.
yeah, and I do not find that entertaining.
Yeah, it's just all luck.
Also, the die roll, there's no way to speed that dice roll up.
Nope.
Just so you know. You have to sit through that whole thing, and then it does the thing, and then even if you don't have bonuses to add, it still takes the time that it would normally take to add. There just nothing happens.
Yeah.
And then the success or failure thing comes up, and you click the button.
Presentation in this game
early on, you're
awesome.
like, oh wow, that's really cool that's a way that you're simulating that, because that's how D&D works. And like 5 hours in, you're like, okay, that's enough. Like, this happens way too much.
Yeah,
like way too much of what happens in the game and in the story is determined by random digital dice rolls. Again, I don't trust digital dice at all.
Yeah,
because they're not real. Like,
why would you?
Like, if you were, I would trust more if you had a webcam and I rolled an actual D20,
no, you're right.
And then it like told me, like,
yep. But the production values in this are great. The graphics are great. As I said earlier, the voice acting is incredible. The facial animation is incredible. The music is awesome. And I'm not just saying that because one of the people who made the music in this game is probably on our stream right now.
Sound Wizard's in there.
Sound Wizard, I think he's in our chat. He worked on the audio in this game, and it is great.
No,
like him and his crew did an awesome job.
You cannot fault any of the presentation in this game. Like, the audio visual's amazing. Like, this is the best looking, best sounding, best basically everything D&D game ever made.
Ever.
Like,
easily.
This, look, I don't actually like the amount of randomness in this game. It actually kind of ruins it for me. I don't dislike it. I don't think it's a bad game because of it. It's just not for me in that regard, and I'm going to have to mod a lot of it out to make it enjoyable to me. But this is the best representation of Dungeons and Dragons has ever been put in a video game.
And the thing is,
without any question,
it toes the freaking line.
Yeah,
it is D&D 100%. It does not pull any punches.
This is, I would say, it's D&D in a box, except it doesn't come in a box. There's no physical edition of it yet. But no, this is Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
100%. Like, and with all the bad and good
love
that
it or
comes
hate
with,
it. Yeah.
And it is an achievement. Like, it is a stunning achievement.
It really is, man.
Absolutely.
Like, this game has blown my mind. I don't even know how many times in the last 5-6 days. Just moments you're just like, really?
You're like, oh, that's there. Like, wow, look at that.
It's crazy.
There's things like you open a door in this game, you know what the fuck you're gonna find.
Yeah,
and it's amazing.
Or you just walk through a threshold into a little village. It's
also amazing how
what's gonna happen.
Like, I played because one of the other reasons I have longer play time is I started 4 different characters in different classes to kind of go through the beginning and see how it felt, and see what I settled on a warlock eventually. But the other thing I'm impressed by is just how often your class matters. And it's not in the sense of if you're a paladin or a whatever, you get to have this conversation if you weren't a paladin. It's that they figured out a way for every class to have some unique interaction with almost I'd say a third of the conversations.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And it's remarkable.
And they'll be denoted with
it'll say warlock in brackets or whatever you're using. It'll tell you what your skill or ability is.
You're more likely,
and
at least it makes you think you're more likely to have success by using the paladin. Like, I'm a paladin.
Generally,
use the paladin.
You got to remember your skills because I will usually have intelligence, strength, or wisdom, and I have to, or charisma, and I have to remember that as a warlock I have very high charisma and I have high intelligence. My strength's not very good, so I probably don't want to pick the strength option because the difficulty for that will be higher. So that's, and I've had difficulty checks, and I've reloaded just to see sometimes. And my strength difficulty check is a difficulty 15. I have to roll 15 or higher. Yeah, and I have a -1 modifier because my strength is 8. Yeah. Whereas if I picked intelligence, the difficulty's 5. Yeah, and I have 5.
You got to pay attention
bonuses, so that means you can't fail. Well, you can because a 1 is an automatic failure no matter what. But
my biggest complaint with the game is the combat. I would, if they had just swapped this out for XCOM, I'd be so much happier because everything is just so ambiguous. Again, you're right. Playing with the mouse and keyboard makes it better because you have the top-down view. It's easier to see the angles of whether your projectile attacks are going to land or not. But there's no grid. There's no way to know exactly how many steps you can take, exactly how many steps the enemy can take. So it's hard to plan on okay, I'm not going to be able to reach him in this turn, but if I take 3 steps, that means he can take his 15. I'll still be in range, but he can't get to me. Like, you can't do those calculations in this game. At least I haven't figured out a way to do it.
Someone who knows the way 5th edition works inside and out probably could. I am not that person.
I can't figure it out. So
I am constantly surprised by what the enemies can. I'm like, that enemy can dash and still attack at the end of the dash.
They'll like power themselves up and they'll run like a mile and like just.
I've had half my party downed in one turn before they even got to move.
Yeah,
like
it's hard to. It's my biggest complaint with the game. I feel like, to your point, there's way too much luck and randomness involved with the combat in this, and it's a big part of the game. It's not like you get in a skirmish once every 45 minutes. Like, it's continual. Yeah,
and if you miss an attack, like,
you're done.
That could be the end of it. Like and here's my and I'll charge up my I have the fighter that I got from the cage. I will charge her. She's got she has like stuff that lets her like raise basically the likelihood of hitting on her next hit, and she's got like advantages in that. And I will charge that up. I've charged that up to be 95% to hit, and I've critically missed. And then one time there was an enemy. Well, she wasn't an enemy, but she was going to be an enemy. So I'm like, I'm going to try to kill her as fast as I can so she can't call for help and ruin this whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I charge up Laziel, the Githyanki fighter, 85% hit chance. Out of surprise attack, critical miss, reload save, critical miss, reload save, critical miss, reload save, critical miss, reload save. Finally, she hits, and I'm just like, what? It's just.
I mean, I've had moments like that in this game for sure. Yeah.
It's just like at one point, what was the other thing that happened was what I was talking before, where the character we were trying to escape the double level the enemies double our level, and the one got killed, so I had to reload the beginning of the dungeon and play an hour-long dungeon again. I just quit the game and went outside.
Touch grass.
There have been points, seriously. And there have literally been points where I'm like, I can't play this game anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's infuriating to me.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't be that way.
I'm so torn on this game. Like, I really struggle to just make a blanket statement of whether people should buy it or not. Like, I really feel like it is for a specific type of player.
It's fascinating to me that this has done so well.
Me too.
Because
I think it's just like FOMO, like piling on.
Well, also it's the return of a classic after almost 25 years.
Yeah.
D&D's hot right now. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
Larian's got great reputation and deservedly so. Like I said, the way they implemented this is not the way I want to play D&D. But they did implement it pretty much flawlessly in terms of replicating the game on paper. Yeah. It's remarkable. It really is.
I think the one thing I can say pretty confidently, though, is that
if you love D&D 5th edition and you don't care about all that amount of dice rolls are like your bread and butter and you love the randomness of that, you're going to love this game.
Yeah.
Outside of the fact that I don't think controlling it on a controller is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of radial menus. There's a lot of moving around. You got to learn what each button selects which menu, and it's mostly menus.
It's completely different. Like,
it is
when
very
you play
different.
on a controller, you tap the R1 button and it'll bring up like 3 or, depending on your character, like several radial menus that you then select from.
You're switching between with the shoulder buttons. And then like all the. I will say this: if you have a PC that can run this, play it with a mouse. Play it on PC.
I would probably recommend that too. But
I think it works better with
being able to play on the couch is pretty nice.
It is.
I'll say that much. But there's a lot of people who run an HDMI cable all the way from their PC out to their TV in the living room. That's a good way to play it too. But then you need the mouse and the keyboard like on your lap, which I'm guessing if people do that, they probably have that set up anyway. So what I was getting at though is that like right now I think its Metacritic is like 95 or something. Like I struggle.
It's only like 11 reviews or 6 reviews. I'm curious what all the big. Once people play,
we may not get those for weeks.
Because one thing I will say, this game makes one hell of a first impression.
Yeah.
Like early on, you're like, oh my god, this is incredible.
It's almost overwhelming how awesome it is.
And 10 hours in, you're like, oh my god, just let me say what I want to fucking say. Like, why do I have to roll to decide what I want to drink today? Like, it's just stop it.
Barry Lomax, my PC is my living room, LLO, connected to my TV. I know a lot of you guys are that way. You have your PCs rigged up so you can play out on your couch, which is the way to do it.
I mean, it's great for your fantasy team, one way or the other.
Well, what I'm getting at is that it's hard for me to recommend this game to somebody one way or the other without knowing them personally. But one thing I can say with a fair level of conviction is that I would probably not give this game a 95.
No, I wouldn't definitely
I think
not.
that, to me, that score is higher than what I would give it. At least from what I've played so far.
This is in like an 8.5 for me right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's around a 9 for me, I would say. And then I think it goes up or down depending on your perspective or on someone else. Some other people may love that rigid D&D stuff.
Oh yeah, there's some. I mean,
yeah.
Here's the thing, like it's because, like I said, the achievement and the scope and the breadth and the presentation, it's all phenomenal.
It really is
stunning.
Yeah.
But if you strip all that away, the game that's like the combat game and the conversation game that's left is kind of mediocre.
Part. Yeah, I'd agree.
Because, hot take, D&D is kind of a mediocre game system.
It is.
And it is popular and it works and it's fun because of who you play with and who is running the game.
The dungeon master.
The rules are there as they're mostly guidelines, as they say in the pirate world.
But in this game, word is bond.
Word is bond. Yeah, exactly.
It's like the letter of the law.
So all I'm saying is you better be ready. That's again my PC recommendation. You better be ready to play to the letter of the D&D law, or mod this thing within an inch of its life, which is exactly what people do in real life with actual tabletop games of D&D.
That's true.
Because house ruling is life.
Yeah.
So that would be my recommendation. Like, this entirely is going to come down to how annoyed by randomness you are. And I will admit that in the last 3 or 4 years, getting more and more into board games, my tolerance for randomness has gotten lower and lower.
I think that's just called getting older.
Some of it, but also rolling dice to do random things in board games is considered archaic and frowned upon.
Yeah,
like good luck finding a modern board game where you roll a die to see how many spaces you move.
Like D&D. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's always a way to mitigate. There's always a way to change. And D&D has some of that with the inspiration system and the bonuses. You can choose what's best for you in terms of, like, okay, I'm going to pick wisdom or charisma because I'm very high in that. I got bonuses on it. But, like, it can only help you so much. If you roll 1, you fail, whether it makes any sense or not.
Yeah.
And that's when you reload.
Yep.
And if you're willing to save scum your way through this stuff, if that stuff bothers you, fine. But to me, that breaks immersion and makes me feel like I can't just go around and see how things unfold.
I hate it
because I'm constantly dealing with a menu.
I hate having in the back of my mind that my save could be wiped. I need constantly having to worry about what's going to happen? Am I going to stumble into this village and get attacked by a bunch of goblins? They're going to kill me. I better save because you just never know. Like, I don't like that at all. Yeah. Like, I just want to enjoy the game.
And if I would enjoy, because the one thing they did that I do think is great. There's no real mention of alignment in this game.
No, you're right.
Like moral alignment.
Neutral good.
And there is no way to know. You can figure it out. Obviously, the vampire is probably chaotic evil, right? The goblins are not good people,
right?
But there's no like meter that pops up like in a BioWare game to tell you like, oh, you sided with a goblin, you get +4
bad
mean person points. Like none of that's there. It lets you sort of make your own decisions in that, and that's great. Like because that system is one of all the things they threw out from D&D. It's that, although that is on the wane. Like using that system is on the wane now. The other thing I think they did a great job with is. There's been like a lot of controversy, not a lot of controversy, but there's been a discussion in the D&D community about the idea of orcs and goblins and things like that just being like general bad guys and like they're not treated as like actual civilizations or races or whatever. Right. And in this game,
where there's good or bad in each of them.
But in this game, they are. Like you can have long conversations with ogres and goblins and bugbears and
they'll explain things to you and their reasoning and
and like they're obviously different and some of them are evil and a lot of them are dangerous, but like they do a good job of making it feel like all these weird worlds live alongside each other in Faerun, and it's again the best depiction of that I've ever seen in a video game. It's remarkably good. It's just there's this barrier of randomness that I just can't get past because the only way to get past is to constantly reload shit. But that also breaks it for me because I'd rather just go through and live the game. I'd rather just play the game, but I don't feel like I can because even when I try to do that, like something some die roll fails and I'm locked out of this thing and I'm like, well, that was what I wanted to do. Like now I can't.
Now you can't.
And like there's people that would say, well, that's just part of D&D. Well, fuck that part.
It is, but that doesn't mean you have to like it.
No, and a human dungeon master would be able to sort of mitigate that and still find a way for you to creatively get around that, which is part of the fun of D&D. Is like, well, can I use my athletics to hop over this and flip that table and then use my ice beam to freeze the table so the fire is resisted and I can heal the guy behind it. And the dungeon master will be like, make a athletics roll and then this roll, and if you pass it, great. So but like you can't do that. Like that's a thing where the randomness would make sense to me, where I'm like, want to do some crazy thing like thinking outside the box, make me roll for that, because that's nonsense, right?
Yeah, it should only be for big moments, honestly.
Right.
I'm okay with it being in there. It's
most
in there too
most
much.
DMs in modern day are going to do that way. It's like, do you need to roll to convince like your fellow party member that maybe we shouldn't use these evil tadpoles in our head to control other people's minds?
Yeah.
Nope, you failed. He dislikes you because you don't agree with him on that. Like, no, you don't roll for that. You roll to convince the commander of the orc army to not invade the druid grove.
Right.
Like, and if you go or fail, and then that's going to determine the difference, and that's a failure or a success thing I can get behind, because you got to deal with the consequence of that. I'm just tired of dealing with the consequences of a failed random roll.
Thing. It's petty.
4 times a conversation when we're just trying to talk about what we're going to have for dinner. Like, stop it. That's not how humans work.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's Baldur's Gate 3. As usual with GameFace, if we haven't finished a game when we talk about it, Matt and I will continue to play. If we have any revelations or things that change our opinion, we'll be sure to come back on episode 354 and update you guys on that stuff. But that's where we're feeling right now with Baldur's Gate 3. It is the rare game where I can't just say when we're done discussing it that you give it a thumbs up and I give it a thumbs down, or we both give it a thumbs up.
No. Plus, the other problem is, like, we're like, what, 10% in?
Right.
Like, IGN just said it took them 50 hours to get to Act 2 or something. And that's the other thing. If you do play this, there's a part you go to a place that's called like a mountain pass, I think, and it pops up a thing that says like, "Careful, you're about to go into the next part of the game," and it feels like it's warning you you're about to go into Act 2. You are not.
You're just
Act 2 is a long way away from that. What it's saying there in very poorly communicated way is that you're about to enter an area where the enemies are going to get more powerful.
Yeah.
So what you want to make sure you're level 5 before you go past that warning. Yeah. I don't know why it doesn't just say that, but that's a thing to know, is like that you're not going to lose out on content. You're not going to, but that is a warning that like if you're not at level 5, you should go back and do more stuff in the beginning area.
Yeah.
That was a thing that I was surprised that like they never really changed before.
Okay, let's check in with you guys. As I said when the show started, this is back and forth on this game. We want to have a symbiotic conversation about it, so I want to see what you guys are saying. Eve Demon, you two aren't finishing this game. It's 100 hours plus. Probably not, but we can play a lot more of it. That's for sure.
I will play this probably until Armored Core comes out.
Yeah. El Guapo says, I think the last time Shane hit 100 hours was Persona 5, and I think he's done. Yeah, I mean, once I've played a game 50 or 60 hours, I think I have a pretty good grasp on it at that point. It has to be really good to drag me along for another like 40 hours. IGN just put up a review update, and it started Act 2 after 55 hours. So there you go.
Sounds about right, especially if you go through. So there's a couple different ways you can get to where Act 2 starts, and it's not nothing.
Yeah.
Like, this game is huge.
He says Cinetype says you guys need to use quick saves more often. We do.
I use quick saves all the time.
It's annoying how often we use it. That's the point that we're making.
The thing where I lost all the progress in that dungeon is what taught me to use quick saves all the time, but I don't like to use quick saves all the time because then I'm thinking about quick saving and not about the fucking game.
Yeah.
Like, that's my problem, is like, I want to just play the game. Like, I don't want to have to constantly reload because some random thing happened in a fight and I missed one attack, and because of that enemy was still alive and killed someone, and now I can't win the fight anymore.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like, it's too random. And it's random in a way that I don't feel like combat in actual tabletop D&D is anymore. I have never felt as frustrated in tabletop D&D as I have during this game.
Yeah. JM Rain, how is the early story, is it captivating? No, I thought it was actually boring at points. It's a slow burn.
I wouldn't call it boring, but I do think you don't really know what you need to do a fair amount early on. Like, there have been a couple points, even when there was a point early on when you have to go into a goblin camp, and you can work it out so like you can go in and you're not fighting. Like, you just go in and they're like, okay, come on in, whatever. And I got in the goblin camp and I realized I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to do like 3 things in this goblin camp, and I have no idea how to do any of them. And it became a whole it became a little more of a puzzle solving thing. There was one thing that happened that the way I figured out to do it actually turned out to be pretty funny. But yeah, it's very much go figure it out. It's not BioWare. It's not, the markers even on the map are like, here's the vague area where this is going to happen, but we're not going to tell you what you have to do. The other thing to know that I think is maybe counter to how most RPGs are done today, this is not a go through, check off all the journal like quests and like complete everything in an area and move on thing. No, because all these things are so interconnected that you're going to have to make a choice on how to complete something. That's going to like cause like 3 other things to complete themselves because you can no longer do anything with it. You've made your decision.
Yeah.
So don't treat... one thing that I think is important is to not treat this game like a checklist. Because... basically,
that would be
basically work your way forward.
Big mistake.
Work your way forward in terms of what the main quest is suggesting you do, and work your way forward in a way that your character think your character would.
Yeah,
do.
role play.
Yeah, role. It does want you to role. That's one of the reasons I'm so frustrated by the randomness of the dice rolls. Is I do feel like it's encouraged me to behave as my character. It's
but
just sometimes it's like, oh no, your character can't do that because you rolled bad.
Yeah. Someone in chat pointed out that you can click the dice a second time and it'll speed up the dice rolls.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And then AJ the Legend Watson asked, what's the gameplay loop like? That's the thing. There isn't one. Mm-hmm. There isn't a pattern that you fall into with this where you like go into a dungeon, finish the dungeon, collect all the loot, go back to home base, sell the loot that you don't want, keep the loot that you do. That isn't how this game works.
It's more like, go here, talk to this.
I need to
realize
go over.
There's an ambush. Negotiate with the people that to not ambush me. Go over here. Go and wander around the town. Found a letter in this thing. Pull a lever. Go find a secret journal. Find a secret hideout. Okay, found some interesting treasure I can't use. Maybe I should go back and do that. Okay, it opens up another secret door. This secret door. Oh, there's a lot of spider webs here. Oh, those spiders are 3 levels higher than me. I need to run.
Get out.
It's like
that's how it plays.
And there's no. You can't really predict what's going to happen, which is again good. Like that's good randomness. It's not randomness, it's design. But like you never quite know what's around the next corner, which is pretty. I mean, you can run into some shit that you would not think is going to happen, especially early in the game. You're like,
I was like, what?
There's just a okay, that's here. All right, sure.
There's those moments that like
everybody
blew my
go
mind.
the other way fast. Like like there's you can wander into areas that you're not ready for.
Yeah. Ethan Stevens said this is my current game of the year. Well, guess we'll see how Starfield is. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey man, if Starfield's even close to as good as this, I'll be happy.
Yeah, because the other parts of it you're going to love no matter what. Yeah. So, yeah. And I will say this, like, other than seeing a couple characters in a T-pose and the problems that they have with saves, otherwise, code's pretty damn clean.
Yeah,
like
for
a game that's this big and sprawling.
So big and so like coming in so hot as it seemed. Yeah. It took so long to get review code.
Yeah, we didn't get the review code until it was out, so.
But, like... No, this game is so clean. Yeah. Technically, it's ridiculous. It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, that's what a couple years of early access will do for you. But like, no, like if Starfield launches this clean, it will be the best launch Bethesda's ever done in its entire life. Yeah. It's just like
Bethesda's praying that I just see a couple people in a T-pose.
Like this is. I mean,
like that's a win.
Other than the save bug, which sounds like what you ran into, which is fixed now.
Yeah.
Although it sounds like the hot fix might have what damaged your save because it was part of the bug.
Yeah.
No, this is one of the most solid technical releases of the year,
particularly for a game like this.
Oh yeah, like once you see all how the web interconnects, you're like, how does this all work? I mean, like I said, there've been a couple quests like. One of them had a bug that I saw 2 years ago. I'm surprised they hadn't fixed, which makes me think maybe it's intentional, but that's weird.
Yeah.
There's places where like dialogue just doesn't seem to pop up the way it should, and then if you go do something else that is tangentially related that you may not know about when you first run into it, it will then open up more dialogue when you go back, but there's no real indicator that you should go back.
Right. Yeah.
It's like that. You're going to miss stuff.
Yeah, but you're also going to stumble across some pretty cool stuff.
Sometimes you're just going to have to be like, I don't know what to do here, and I'm going to walk away from it. And sometimes you'll run into something like, oh, I bet I can go back and do that now. And sometimes you'll just never go back again.
Yeah, you'll never see it
and that's okay.
And that's all right.
You know?
Yep. So there you go. That's Baldur's Gate 3. Again, it's a gigantic game. Matt and I have played 20-ish hours of it. There's still 80 more to go. So there is a chance that our opinions could change on it. And if that's the case, we'll come back and we'll talk about it again. All right, we're going to move on. Next up, we're going to talk about a gigantic event that happened this weekend. And really, at this point, Matt, the only esports that I pay any attention to whatsoever.
You and a whole lot of other people.
I know. I tried with all the other stuff. It used to be like a big League of Legends player. I could never get into watching League of Legends esports.
No.
I figured out a long time ago that I really only enjoyed watching fighting game esports. And as time has gone on, the only tournament that I watch is the EVO. So this is like the weekend where Shane turns into like esports fan and really gets into it. And get into it, I did, Matt. I had a blast watching EVO this weekend. What were some of the highlights for you that really stick out in your mind?
Well, it was nice to see Project L finally.
Yeah, what exactly?
Speaking of League of Legends.
Riot's fighting game, which there had been like teases here and there. We had some screenshots here and there. We finally got to see it in motion. They put out a trailer for it. So yeah, we finally got to look at Riot's fighter.
It was nice to see Ultimate Marvel back, although I didn't actually find watching it all that interesting, because it turns out that game really hasn't progressed in terms of strategy or tech in 10 years.
I'll be honest with you. There's several games that I saw across the weekend that I was like, eh.
Yeah,
like King of Fighters 15. Like that game looks really primitive. Like the backgrounds are all like static and like
it is a throwback, but it is the most popular fighting game in all of Latin America. And South
America. Why is that? Nope. So the announcers for that were Hispanic. And I'll be honest with you, I really struggled to hear what they were saying and understanding what they were saying.
Well, part of that is he's wearing a luchador mask, that one guy.
Maybe, yeah.
But like that, so I don't know 100% for sure, but I've seen Mexican King of Fighters fans give the opinion that it's largely because a lot of places like where you'd play arcade games, like stores and little places like down in Latin America and Mexico, Latin America, Central America, they couldn't afford like the latest greatest Capcom cabinets, but they did have Neo Geo cabinets, and replacing a game for that was as simple as getting the new game and plugging it in.
Yeah.
And so King of Fighters was a lot easier to keep up with and keep running in that area of the world. And so that was the thing that people played, and that's why they like it so much, because that's what they play.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So that was the theory that I've read. I don't know that for sure. I don't know anything about, like, I only found out that King of Fighters is the fighting game, basically the official fighting game of Mexico, like 2 years ago.
I could tell by watching the tournament live.
Yeah.
Like you could just see the crowd was a lot of Hispanic people in the crowd. The announcers were Hispanic.
I think it was cool. I thought it was.
I didn't realize why. I was like, "What is going on here? Like, why is this happening?"
It's the Latino game. It's the Latino favorite.
It's awesome.
So, and it was cool that like finally, after all these years, finally they've brought in that crowd and those announcers to come do. It's for them. It's for the people who love that game now. It's not. You don't have like. North America, you don't have American like announcers trying to like kind of keep up with things. You have the people that everybody know that watch that stream, and like there was a Spanish stream too, I think.
Yeah.
Just like there was a Japanese stream for a lot of the Japanese games. That was very cool. I admit, King of Fighters is not particularly interesting for me to watch.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy that it's
the community is
and the community
great.
Is represented. That part of the community is represented there, because it hasn't been for a long time.
What I really want to say about
it's
EVO,
become a much more worldwide event. The other thing I really enjoyed was that the Street Fighter 6 final was between. It's only the second time it's ever happened. Neither player was from the United States or Japan.
Yeah.
That's very. Last time that happened was 2012.
One was from UAE,
United Arab Emirates. The other was Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Mena RD is from
awesome.
Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
And last time that happened was Infiltration in 2012. Was Infiltration, who's from South Korea, versus GamerB, who's from Thailand, I think. Thailand.
Oh, really? He's not Japanese?
GamerB? Oh, no, Taiwan. He's from Taiwan.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought he was Japanese.
No, GamerB is Taiwan.
Okay.
I want to say it's... Am I right? Taiwan, I think it is.
Okay. What really struck me about EVO 2023, and I've said this or felt this about EVO in the past, is that, to me, EVO is the best of the industry. It is the industry putting its best foot forward. Like if
now they got that one guy out of there.
Which guy?
One of the organizers who was caught with child porn.
Right.
Now that's gone, and they've kind of revamped some things.
I'm just saying, like outwardly, the presentation of it, the way the athletes treat each other, interact with each other, it makes our industry look awesome.
Oh yeah,
and like we need more stuff like this.
Well, one of the problems about trying to replicate it is this is the only esports and only like competitive gaming community that came out of the arcades.
Yeah,
they came out of the arcade. They came out of a place where everybody gathered like intentionally and socially and
face to face,
shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
If you didn't behave, you get your ass kicked.
Literally,
like I don't want to lean too far into the kind of the fallacy of like an armed society is the polite society thing. But like you had to mind your shit. When you were playing
because you had to answer face to face. There was no Xbox Live protecting your ass.
But that also creates an atmosphere of respect where everybody does respect the fact that you show up and you drop that quarter in and you play face to face and you get better and like like, even back in the day with Street Fighter 2, the original Street Fighter 2 and all that stuff, like you would see other, like you'd win a match against someone that you'd gotten your ass beat by for weeks or months, and that guy would train. It's like, you got better, good work, man.
Yeah,
like you got me finally. And it's like, and like that was where this all comes from.
That's where I come from, Matt.
It doesn't come from like LAN shit or like playing online all the time, or like it's a different world, and it's also, as some of the others, because I noticed even when I started covering it in 2009 for X-Play, I was like, this, I noticed it's so diverse. Like it's so
it really
diverse.
Is, man.
And
it's
I
awesome.
asked a couple of the guys, like, why is it so diverse? Like, it's, not that it's a bad thing, obviously it's great, but like why? And the one guy said, because it costs $0.25 to play Street Fighter 2, and it costs like $200 to buy a Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And that was the difference.
Yeah.
Like, you had a much wider audience that could come in and experience this, and that's one of the great things about the FGC.
Watching EVO made me proud to be in this industry. And my wife sat and watched some of it with me, and she laughed at parts of it that she thought were, because, she doesn't care that much. So when people would get really into it, it was funny to her. Like, there was one part where, like, there was a crazy pivotal moment of the match, and the announcer was like, go, boop, 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 boop. And, like, she kind of, like, perked up and looked over and, like, started laughing. But for the most part, like, she got into it. And because she likes the interaction between the competitors. She likes seeing sportsmanship and people shaking hands and giving each other hugs and like. Yeah.
And a lot of these guys have played against each other in
many times
for years.
Yeah,
years and years. The one guy who won, what was it? The guy who won Ultimate Marvel 3. This is like his. I think he's been
20th time.
No, it's more like his 6th or 7th time. But the first time he came, he wasn't even 18 yet.
Oh.
The game, I calculate, at best I can calculate it. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came out when that guy was 11.
It's awesome.
And like he's the best in the world at it.
Yeah,
and it's remarkable.
Yeah,
or was it Taquito, who was in the finals for Street Fighter? This was his 19th EVO. EVO's only existed for 20 years.
He's still making it into the top 6. Great. A lot of them aren't, though. A lot of our old fan favorites.
My friends, like I know a lot of those guys from when I was doing. Like they
need a senior class.
Yeah,
I would watch that, man.
They might. I mean, they do like casuals and like post game suites and stuff. There's a lot of that, and a lot of that's on stream. You can see it. It's but you're only getting the $20,000 prize. if you're a youngin.
Another thing I noticed: esports announcers are amazing. You have to know the game so well. Like, I know Street Fighter 6, but I watch them and it's like insane how their brains work, like how the dominoes falling in their minds of like, okay, he tried to do this, the other guy stopped it, and now I instantly know 5 potential outcomes from that, and I'm going to say them before any of those outcomes actually happen. It's amazing.
That is what happens when you play those games that much.
It's incredible. Like, really, the announcers, and it doesn't matter the game. Every game, the announcers that they had at EVO were amazing. Like, I was just, like, blown. As someone who's worked in production, television, with talent, like, those guys are freaking talented, dude. Some of them go a little bit above and beyond. They have a shtick, or they wear costumes. Some shtick,
and there's some things, like, I know, I'm the only human being in the world that doesn't particularly care for Yipes' commentary.
No.
Just because here's the thing. Yipes knows those games backwards and forwards, inside and out, but he spends a lot of his time commentating, just like making noises when people do combos. Like, I cannot stand when like the combo happens and some of the announcers is like, ooh, 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 ooh. I'm like, what are you doing?
That's the stuff that would send my wife.
Because it's stupid. Like it's weird to me that like it's like the appeal of the commentators to me is that, like you say, they know the game so well they can make analysis and on the fly that like almost no one else could do because they know it so well. But anyone in that room could get up there and make noises for every time somebody hits somebody with a combo. Like, it's not useful. And everyone's like, "Oh, it builds hype." I'm like, I don't get it. It's too. And then now, it's one thing when it's Yipes' thing. That's one of the things one of his trademarks. But a bunch of the other announcers have started to steal it. And I'm like, no, that's his thing.
They're trying to build hype. Yeah,
they're trying to build hype, but find your own way to do it, because that is Yipes' thing. I'm sure he doesn't care, because like whatever. He's no one's going to replace him. He's like the most popular commentator in the entire community, I think. But like it also made me realize how insane it was that someone hired Adam Sessler to do commentary on a fighting game. That is the dumbest idea. Has nothing to do with Adam. It's like, you don't bring anybody in to do fighting game commentary who has not done fighting game commentary.
It still can't believe somebody thought that was a good idea.
Yep.
Adam's smart AF. He's smart as a whip. He can figure crap out like on the fly. Nobody can figure this out on the fly.
Yeah, well,
it is impossible.
You can do kind of a color commentary thing if you want, especially.
Oh, that was a close one.
Because he was. I mean, I'll be honest. I heard some people say things as that bad on some of the. I mean, look. You also the thing is like it's grand finals commentary versus like Friday pools commentary.
Right. No, you're right.
Thing.
Yeah.
But like, the Adam thing was a fascinating. it was basically barreling down the train tracks, realizing there was a wall and there wasn't much I could do about it. I was like, I'll teach you more about the thing. And like, I don't think he took it as serious.
It's not your fault, man.
No, but I do remember him coming out from after the thing, and he was covered in sweat, and he looked at me. He's like, I had no idea. I didn't know it was like that. I'm just like, there's a lot happening, man. Like,
I have a question for you, actually. Why was I saw one competitor playing with his hands in a cardboard box.
Yeah.
Why is that? What is that?
He is playing, he's a little paranoid, is basically.
Is that what it is?
Because he's playing, I believe he was using a hitbox, which is the controller with no joystick, or a hitbox equivalent, which is a no joystick.
He had a joystick.
It was a joystick?
On his controller, yeah.
Some people like to cover their hands because they don't want people to look at what they're doing.
Interesting. It seemed annoying. Like, sitting there playing with this.
I don't know how, as someone who's played a lot of fighting games, I don't know
what you're going to learn by watching someone's hands.
Yeah. I mean, also, some people, like, there are people that, like, you'll see with, like, a blanket over. It could have been, like, a hand warmer thing.
No, it was a cardboard box. It just
but he
sat on his lap, and he had his controller inside the cardboard box.
Right, but there might have been some insulation or something in there or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it is cold in the area.
It's weird. I was like, what's going on there?
You'll see people with gloves on. You'll see people with, like the fingertip things, like
those I get.
Like that's for the.
I understand that.
It depends. Like if and also sometimes it can sometimes be a warmer. Can sometimes be true to keep them cool. Yeah. Because like if your hands sweat, that's a problem. Well, you'll notice that especially with the controller players. Like
they all wipe their hands.
You wipe your hands off between rounds.
I actually thought I wonder if I could make a pair of pants that had like suede just where they wipe their hands. Mm-hmm. It's interesting watching all that stuff.
And sometimes people will do that just to like throw people off. Like if you're trying to play and like the guy next to you is playing in a cardboard box, you're sort of like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
There's some psychological warfare happening sometimes.
The other thing that I noticed was in a lot of games, the esports participants have figured out who the best character is, and so you get into the final six, and it's just that one character. Like
there were a number of mirror match finals this year that were remarkable.
Cronin versus Cronin. I think that was in. Was that King of Fighters 15? Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know.
But there was one game where this Cronin guy, the last 10 matches, just Cronin versus Cronin. Mortal Kombat 11, Fujin versus Fujin.
Fujin all the way
Literally the whole time, Fujin versus Fujin.
And part of that is not necessarily that Fujin's the best character. It's that no other characters have effective counters to Fujin.
For him, yeah.
Especially at high level play.
They all played him. Yeah. Every single player.
Same with was a Grand Blue Fantasy was not a mirror match, but the Ultimate Marvel was a mirror match.
And then Emperor Dress has Tekken too with
Tekken was a mirror match with Kuni.
Yeah. That to me got a little annoying. It's like watching mirror matches over and over again. That's just how that was game. It is. I mean, I get it, but
I was impressed by the fact that Street Fighter 6 there was only 2 duplicate characters in the top 6.
Yeah.
There are 2 Kens.
It shows you that the game is great.
And there were no... a lot of people thought Marissa was going to dominate.
Mm-hmm. We did. We talked about it last week. Yeah, she did not. Do you think they tweaked her before the tournament?
No. She has her game plan, but you can outthink it.
People have figured out.
There was also an interesting breakdown of how many in the top 90. I think it was the top 96. Which is like where you've narrowed it down to basically like you're coming up on the semifinals at that point. Mm-hmm. Somebody broke down all the different character, the mains for every one person in that 96, and the most was JP, which like something like 18. Like JP is a very technical, important character because people he's confusing. He's very hard to play against. 0 Ryus.
But tons of
in
Ken.
the top. Tons of Ken. Oh, Ken was number 2. Ken was the second
He's
most
the man, yeah.
populous. It's fascinating to see like the breakdown. That doesn't mean that JP's the best character,
Yeah.
but he was the most used character by people who got in the top 96.
I was impressed by the guy who didn't win the grand finals, but was in the grand finals, Menard or whatever.
RD, yeah.
But he could switch between characters.
Yeah,
like he didn't have one main.
No,
and
he had his main is Luke.
Yeah.
But he does have that pocket Blanca.
I was also surprised at how many people played Luke, the brand new character. And I mean, a lot of times, I don't know if Capcom's done this, but a lot of times a new character, they make him OP so people use him. But, you know, he wasn't a paid character, so they would have no incentive to do that. So he's just a powerful character that people have figured out. And it was interesting to see him have the ability in the grand finals. Pressure on to just jump back and forth between Luke and Blanca. Like it was nothing. He's like, I need to throw this guy off. He started figuring out my patterns.
Well, and Blanca was because like Blanca is so different in 6.
Yeah.
And what he can do, and I mean the combos he was pulling off with Blanca's never been able to do anything like that before.
Yeah.
Like just the low strong punch, that scoop he can do that like extends the combo.
Yeah.
Like that's a massive tool for Blanca, and like so few people have
you
really
block it,
mastered
he's
that.
Screwed.
That he threw a lot of people off, but of course. It takes more than that to throw Angry Bird off because Angry Bird's one of the best. You know, is the best in the world now. But he is incredible. But everyone, I mean, the fact that he was like having trouble against Tokido, the fact that he outfoxed Punk a little bit. Was you know, there's a lot of people that are like, you know, it was too bad because I do think Punk is very fun to watch. Like Punk is a great player, and his style is so reactive. Like his reactions are so split second that it's fascinating. Like he was, even when he did lose to I think it was Menard as Blanca, he was dragon punching with Cammy. He was dragon punching those balls as they happen. He's so good.
I mean, all those players were so good, dude. It literally just blows my mind watching
Punk's
him play.
doubly impressed with me because he plays so many different games. And he's so good at all.
Right. What blows my mind is that these people, they don't have to just memorize their character. They have to memorize the whole roster because you have to be able to stop the whole roster, and just watching them be able to block everything.
Well, you got to know the matchup.
Crazy.
That's the whole thing. It's like
amazing.
Because the only other option is to know every single human being you're fighting against.
Right.
Because then you can't do that.
You can't do that. Yeah.
So like basically that, because like you got to start somewhere. Basically, you got to know the matchup, which means you got to know the 2 or 3 weaknesses that character has against your character.
Yeah.
And you start there and you build out from there. That's what Alex Valle always says, the first round is data. Like learn what you think. And, that's why Blanca under Mena RD's control is so effective, because most people don't play Blanca in that game.
Yeah.
And you've probably, even these guys at this level, I'm sure they've seen all that before and they've studied him, but they don't necessarily have the muscle memory yet.
Yeah.
And they will, because now a lot of people are going to play Blanca after seeing that. Like
Absolutely.
that's going to be a new thing.
Yep.
And like that's the other fun thing about stuff like EVO and the Capcom Cup stuff is when someone's really successful with a certain character, that character's meta changes.
Yeah.
And the game changes at that level, and so the next tournament's going to be really different.
Yep.
And of course, qualifying for Capcom Cup off of EVO makes it even more, because Capcom Cup's prize is $1 million this time.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. I mean, kudos to Capcom for throwing $2 million in the prize pool for that thing, because that's the biggest thing. And look, EVO got
literally upping the ante.
EVO got recognition from the state of Nevada in this. They got recognized for the biggest esports event.
Well, they called it EVO Day.
It was EVO Day, and then they announced they're moving back to July next year. And the Cannon brothers
moved the EVO Day,
and the Cannon brothers, the founders of EVO, who now work. Or at least one of them works on Project L now. Yeah, or did. I don't remember who's still there, because it was them and Seth for a while, but they all. I think Seth went to Epic and all that, but they got the key to the city, which is pretty cool.
Pretty amazing.
It's nice to see Las Vegas and Nevada recognizing how big this thing is. Yeah, it has taken up Mandalay Bay for how many years now.
Looked great too. The production looked great. I still have problems figuring out which guy is which. Like the way, seriously, I've had this problem with EVO for years. They need to put a little picture-in-picture of their face under their name. It's so simple. It's like, or the other thing they could do is just make sure that when they sit down so that they match what's on screen. They don't do any of that. So I don't know, I'm watching some of these smaller games. I have no idea who these people are.
It's always the names up in the top are first player and second player. And so when you see them, whoever's sitting in first player, whoever's sitting in second player, that's their names.
That's not it, though. That doesn't work
Yes,
that
it
way.
is.
It's not, though. That's not. I watched that whole tournament trying to figure it out. It does not.
It's easy.
No rhyme or reason. All they got to do is just put a little window of their face.
No.
That's it. It's so easy.
No, I don't want to waste.
Also, if you're one of the athletes, you want people to know who you are.
They all
Your
know who they
sponsors want you to know them to know who you are.
But they all know who they are.
I don't.
That's not a common problem.
It is for people who look. Imagine my mom watching, Matt. Like, I'm not even my mom. Like, I am hardcore into games, dude, and I cannot follow who the competitors are in their production. I have worked in television for 20 years.
I mean, I guess
bad. It's a mistake.
It's reversed. It's not a mistake. It's fine. It's reversed. Like when you see the shot of their faces because they're sitting the opposite way facing the game because it's first player, second player. But like the names just match up the other way around.
It's the reverse. I mean, it's dumb. It's dumb as shit.
That's how.
Just put their faces up there. Put them on a window with their face. It take up this much space at the top of the screen. That's it.
Through the whole match?
Yeah, why not?
No,
I want to see their faces when they get caught.
I want to see the game. I don't know.
It's this fucking big, dude.
No.
What are you talking about?
People are watching.
You can see the damn game.
I'm not worried about it because they're never going to do that, so we're fine.
Why won't they do it?
Because I don't even know if they have the ability to do that much production work.
If you have a TriCaster, you can do it, and I guarantee they have a TriCaster. Like,
I just don't care. I know who they are. I see
don't.
them between. I don't care.
That's good for you, Matt. There's millions of people out there that this can expand out to who have no clue who any of these people are. No clue.
If you know your left from your right, you know who they are when they cut back.
No, Matt. I could not figure it out.
They're always in the same place.
So you're just saying they're reversed? Like,
yeah. Because the person
every time they're reversed?
Yeah.
I could not find that rhyme or reason to it at all.
But it's simple. Like one person sits on player 1 side, one person sits on player 2 side. They are always on the same sides of the monitor.
But they don't. Sometimes they come up and they just plug their controller in. Like, you don't know what port they're plugging into.
The port doesn't matter anymore. You just pick the side. You pick the side you're on. That's how the player thing, and you pick the side. Right, that's how they do that. Every time. That's standard. It's rules. It's in the rules.
It's dumb to do it that way. If they want to grow it to beyond people like you and I, they need to improve the production.
I think they're fine.
I don't. And I think I could watch my wife watch it in complete bewilderment and know that they're not fine. Like, we make the mistake sometimes of thinking everybody's like us. I bring this up all the time on this show. They're not. If you want to grow it beyond the audience, you have to make it so normal people can understand it. I've complained about this like 5 years in a row about EVO. They never fix it, and it's a very easy fix. Like,
they don't want to fix it because it's not broken. So.
For the average person, it is broken. You're not the average person, Matt. You're a crazy fighting game aficionado.
Being a crazy fighting game aficionado doesn't make it easier. I don't know most of these people's faces.
I don't know any of them. Like, I know like 10 people in the whole fighting game scene. Like, it's dumb. Like, again, it's ESPN would have their fucking faces up there.
Normal people aren't watching fighting game tournaments.
But you want them to eventually. You want it to grow and get bigger. Why won't they? There's more people watching now than there were 10 years ago.
Right, because people got into fighting games and they figured it out. But like, it's not the same thing.
Anyway, I still think the production could use some work. Although for the most part, like, the scene itself was awesome. Like at the grand finals where they all had up their cell phones and stuff, like, some of the moments in that were awesome. Like, and they did capture those pretty well. I just think the nuts and bolts of the production can improve. And then they had a ton of announcements because the EVO isn't just about the competition. It's also this window for fighting game developers, publishers, or whatever. They know all the eyes are on them, so they make, I wouldn't say big announcements, but announcements. So let's go through these very quickly because we're running out of time. They announced a new Fatal Fury, the first one in like 20 years.
Well, because that's usually been King of Fighters. King of Fighters replaced Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, all that shit.
A lot of the characters from Fatal Fury are in the other games.
It's all the same. SNK's fighting game is all the same universe. All their fighting.
Still, for whatever reason, people freaked out about it. They thought it was a big deal. Street Fighter 6, they had two big announcements. The first one was a new fighter called Aki. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
She uses poison somehow.
She seems related to Fang, the old guy from 5.
Yeah, all right.
Nobody knows. This is all they've shown of her. Nobody knows how she plays.
She goes to a Giles Barber, apparently.
She's clearly from the same sort of remnant or like Shadowloo organization as Fang.
Okay.
Right down to the fact that her name is an acronym of some kind. You know how Fang was an acronym.
Yeah, right.
I don't remember what it stands for, but hers is also there's dots between the AK and the I. So she's probably going to do like a zone control, like trap sort of style character like Fang was, but maybe modified. There's some disagreement in the community on this because there's people who really hate fighting Fang because he's very different from an usual Street Fighter character. He's actually fairly SNK-ish because of how how much the zoning trap stuff works, and there's not a lot of Street Fighter characters that do that.
Yeah.
So she's going to be very interesting to see going forward. We'll have to wait for a gameplay reveal to really see what she does, but
the look of her unique.
Yeah,
she doesn't really look like any other character.
Yeah, she definitely has her own silhouette there, and I'm sure she'll play. You know, the Street Fighter 6 is better than probably any Street Fighter in a long time of making everybody play differently and feel different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even the Shota clones all
still feel different themselves. I mean, just evidenced by nobody playing Ryu, tons of people playing Ken.
Yeah, Ryu being like not a really tournament powerful character anymore is remarkable.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame.
Not that like you know, Street Fighter 5 he wasn't particularly dominant in that regard, to the point that even Daigo didn't play him anymore. Daigo was mostly Guile in 5.
Yep.
But no, we'll see. Like, she's an interesting character.
Yep.
Everybody, you know, it's fun to see like that even happened with Tekken, where it was like people are all mad that they announced a character that, as you know, an old character, Raven, was announced, and I was like, oh, return, and then they announced immediately a new character,
new one, yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, she's taking up a slot, and I'm like, well, pick one, people.
Well, you just stole the thunder of the next topic.
She looks very interesting,
but. They also announced a collaboration with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for Street Fighter 6. I'm just going to say this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, it knows where its bread is buttered. It is marketing its butt off to gamers. And it's smart, like, because we all love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I thought that was kind of a surprise. But
I mean, it's not the first time they've been in a fighting game, but it is a clever way to work around the idea of having to put them in as characters,
right?
Because they're just costumes.
Yeah, that's one thing we should mention is that they're not technically playable characters.
They're just costumes for people.
Yeah,
which is fine.
Any fighter can use the costume, and the emotes. It's just your typical crossover crap that you get for any whatever another thing.
Capcom finally realized they can use the modding scene for their own advantage.
Yeah,
and do their own mods.
That's a good point. So that was the big announcements for Street Fighter. And then Mortal Kombat 1 put out a brand new trailer called Banished. And basically this trailer unveils Reptile, Havoc, and Ashra as playable characters, and then Serena as a cameo fighter. And the end of this,
I don't even know who that is.
Me either, by the way. I didn't know who it was either. But the end of this, Reptile's fatality is just brutal. Did you see this? See if I can find it here, because this trailer's really long. It's like the very
Ashra, yeah.
It's like the very last thing.
That looks like
there it is. Right here it is. Yeah. So he eats her, then he barfs her out, and she tries to crawl away. Only half of her body.
It's impressive she's still alive.
It's crazy.
People are very tough to kill.
Yeah. So that was Mortal Kombat. And then as Matt alluded to, for Tekken 8, we got Raven, who has been in the series since Tekken 5, I believe.
Sounds right.
He's been in there for a while.
I don't know Tekken very well.
He's an OG.
And there's a bunch of different Raven types or something. I guess we get Ninja Raven this time.
Yeah. But he wasn't such a big deal, as Matt pointed out. People were kind of disappointed. But look, you can't have all new characters for a fighting game. You got to bring back some old characters.
It's a huge like people were like yelling about, oh, it's a returning character, we want new characters, and then the new character was revealed, and it was like, wow, we're wasting a slot that we're gonna have a returning character. It's like,
and here is the new character.
Tekken fans are very divided.
Named Azucena, I believe is the correct way to say it.
Azucena, yeah.
Azucena. And she is an MMA fighter.
Yeah, she's a Peruvian MMA fighter who's addicted to coffee.
Yeah. Tekken is so bizarre, dude.
She's very interesting. Like she's got like this weird dodge counter style that I've never seen really in the game before. Like she's very much about moving out of the way, like, which seem to be like actual moves, like counter moves, almost like like what's her name in Virtua Fighter, the Aikido character. Whose name I'm blanking on.
Yeah, I can't remember either. She reminds me a little bit of Eddie Goro, the way she kind of dances before.
A little bit, but she's more dodge counter than he ever was. Like, which seems, I think that's a specific move. Like, I don't think you're doing that. Like that stuff where she's just dancing around him.
Yeah.
It looks very cool.
It does, yeah. So I think she's a pretty cool character, and she's not really MMA. She's not like ground and pound MMA person, like trying to put him in a sleeper hold. I think that premise is maybe a little flimsy, but otherwise, I'm pretty into her.
She's using some striking and ground techniques from like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to some degree, but like it's not a very.
This is the stuff where I was like, "Is Eddie Goro?"
It's not a very detailed simulation.
Yeah.
Say.
Yep. But she's a cool character, also a diverse character, which is good to see. And then, as we talked about earlier, we finally got a really good look at Project L, which is the dumbest name for a fighting game. Like, they should have...
Well, they're going to name it something else.
Right, but they should have done that before EVO 2023. They should have had the final name ready before. Because, dude, Project L, Project Loser, you took the L. Like, it's just the dumbest name.
I don't know why. I assume it's called that because it's that... I think they just letter their internal projects.
Yeah, just
and that's how many we've never seen,
right?
Because they don't actually come to fruition.
I think you're right.
I think that's literally why that is.
And it's odd enough. Project L, Project Loser, is the one that actually made it.
Well, part of it is, I mean, that's just sort of cool. I think that's a sad coincidence.
Yes, of course.
Like, I don't know. Like this. I mean, this was done off stream. It was done like on a separate stream. For the hardcore people who know what this is, and they know what Project L is. They don't know whatever the final name for this is.
Yeah.
Really.
What do you think of what we've seen of it?
It sure is Marvel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. I mean,
it makes sense for...
I don't know who any of these characters are. Like,
Yasuo is a top laner who's annoying AF in League of Legends.
Well, he seems to be carrying that tradition on in this game.
He's like way OP. Like, he's not even OP and like, okay, we launched this guy, he's OP, now we're going to nerf him. He's just OP for eternity. Anytime he plays top lane, he's going to dominate the game of League of Legends. Like, that, they won't nerf him. Like, everybody hates Yasuo, but here he is. He makes sense for a fighting game because he's like a samurai or whatever, but yeah, I'm not a fan of him because I was also a top laner. I played with Teemo a lot top lane, and I always had to face Yasuo, and I hated playing against him. But this game's, I think, looking pretty good for Riot's first ever fighting game.
Yeah, it looks like I mean, it's made by people that know what they're doing. You got Clockwork on there.
Yep. Seth Killian worked on this at first.
Yeah, Seth Killian worked on it for a while until he went over to Epic. The Cannon brothers were involved.
Yep.
It was their company that got bought by Riot.
Right.
They were working on that other game that got like a beta and then got canceled when Riot bought them. You remember that?
Oh, their fighting game.
Their fighting game.
Yeah. What was that?
I can't remember.
It also had I think it had a goofy name as well.
It had a weird name because it was only in like beta, but it played differently. It was like a keyboard. You could play it with a keyboard. That was
right.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, this looks cool. It looks like a versus game. Like, it looks like a Skullgirls Marvel sort of pedigree.
Yep.
Obviously
they have a roster big enough to supply this game.
It makes the most sense
200
to do
years
that with these guys.
Yep.
And you can add stuff to it forever.
Yeah.
Will it catch on?
Probably not.
Probably not. I mean, yeah, I'll tell you, man.
Just be honest.
I was thinking about this. I'm shocked at how fast the Dragon Ball Z fighter faded.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still in EVO, but it wasn't main stage for Sunday.
It was there.
It was there, and it still got a good number of signups. But like, I'm just shocked that it didn't have the staying power. Like, it was good.
It's a really good fighting game.
Really good. It did what it did, and it had such a built-in audience for like people who love Marvel and people who like Dragon Ball, because Marvel in the fighting game sense, but also people who love Dragon Ball for Dragon Ball. Yeah. Like, it just surprises me that game didn't have more staying power. Maybe Bandai Namco just didn't support it very well.
Especially when you consider games like this. Under Night in Birth 2 is coming out. I had never even touched the original Underbirth. Have you played?
I played several of them, yeah.
What do you think of them?
They're good. I mean, they're Guilty Gear descended anime fighters. By the same, Arc System Works is the Blaze Blue people. If you like Blaze Blue, you'll like this game.
Okay,
they're very similar. In fact, there are characters that are almost identical in places. But it's that kind of thing. It's it's just got a weird name.
Okay.
And the other thing, of course, if you go, I don't know if it's still on, but there was a Steam sale. They were basically giving fighting games away on Steam over the weekend. Like,
yeah, they were.
You could get like the full Tekken everything, Tekken 7 with everything. It was like $9.
Wow.
For all DLC, everything. It was crazy.
Well, I mean, 8 is about to come out.
You could get, what was it? A Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite with everything for like $4.95. Like,
that's not a surprise.
The one thing I will say, I was watching Ultimate Marvel again on Sunday, which was weird that that was one of the main stage games for Sunday because it's so old. I'm like, why is that? I mean, it's popular, great, but it was all the same. So I was just watching people do the old Chris G strategy back and forth and watching Zero Lightning Loop over and over again. And it was a point where I just sort of checked out and did something else until that was over.
Yeah.
But and Tekken came on, which is just like, oh my god, like this is never going to end. Tekken took 3 hours and it was still only a top 6. They went down from top 6 to top 8 and it just wouldn't fucking end.
Yeah.
I do think
those matches take a little longer.
I do think going down to top 6. I mean, I know they did it because they didn't want to go over in the venue anymore, and they had to pay a huge venue late fees because they were there too long last time.
Yeah.
But And some things work okay for top 6, but Street Fighter 6 should be top 8.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the story is better when you
I
have
agree.
the 4.
It's the biggest game. It's the Super Bowl of EVO, for sure.
And then maybe you could save some time. You didn't have a live band playing everybody on with their theme songs every 5 minutes. Like, it was a little weird.
And then this game was announced just before EVO.
Sorry, but I think Ultimate Marvel should have only been on that main stage if you had an announcement to make about Marvel.
Yeah.
Like, if you were going to do a collection, or Marvel vs. Capcom 4 was going to happen, or something like that.
Yeah.
But nothing. It was just there. It was weird.
Yeah.
I thought it was weird.
This game, the one that nobody ever asked for, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, not sure why they couldn't just keep adding DLC to the first All-Star Brawl.
Because they blew it on the first one when they launched it without voices.
Yeah.
So they're trying again. Basically.
They're trying to start fresh. It has Ren and Stimpy in it, so I'm happy. But otherwise, this is just another Smash clone that I feel like it's probably going to come and go and not make much of a wave.
It'll hit its audience well, and I mean, it's cool the Avatar guys. I think it's funny that there's 3 Hey Arnold characters in this, and Arnold isn't one of them.
Right.
His grandma is, but he is not.
That is funny. So anyway, that's Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, and then we got another look at Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rivals. We got the release date trailer for this. It's coming out on November 30th for PC and PlayStation. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus is a little fighting game that could. It came out with very little fanfare, but built a huge audience.
Yeah, well, in part because it's based on an extremely popular mobile game in China that for some reason they apparently have no plans to release here ever.
Yeah, that's odd.
So just the fighting game comes here.
Yeah.
I thought they did this announcement backwards a little bit because they announced the release date, and then they announced that there's a free version, a free-to-play version, and then they announced there's a beta coming. Like, you do that the other way around, guys.
Well, you shouldn't announce that there's a free-to-play version coming, like, at all if you plan on selling the game.
Well, it's not like it's only, you get 4 characters. It's got like a demo version.
Gotcha.
But the big announcement was that it interacts online with the full version of the game.
Okay.
So if you're playing the demo version, you're not stuck just playing against other demo version people. You can play against people who have the full game. So if you're content with like one of the 4 characters you get from that, there you go. But they want as many people in the ecosystem as possible. So it's a pretty cool move. At least certainly with games, because this is another anime style fighter that's a descendant of Guilty Gear and BlazBlue. It's by the same people who made BlazBlue. You might want to try this thing before you throw $60 at it.
It's a pretty game.
It is a pretty game. It also has a lot of extraneous stuff. It has a big story mode, like a really.
You can see from that trailer, there's crazy stuff in there. What the hell is going on?
The chibi stuff. You're all hanging out in lobbies. You can play with other people online and do little mini game things. Like, it's a robust game.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot happening there.
And again, that's coming November 30th for PC and PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. And then the final thing was Guilty Gear Strive. They showed us a trailer for Season 3 of the Season Pass and introduced a new character named Johnny.
Well, he's not new. He's
but
from the first
to the game. He's new to the game. And that was pretty much it. That's EVO 2023. They also announced there's like an update coming for Killer Instinct, like a 10-year update or whatever. It's going to make some tweaks.
In other news, it's been 10 years since the Xbox One Killer Instinct.
Right.
We're all going to die.
I mean, it feels like they should be ready to show a new Killer Instinct at this point. It's been 10 years.
Easier to just update this one with balance tweaks, apparently.
Right, which I think means is probably not making another one.
No, probably not.
Unfortunately. And they haven't done any DLC for that.
Too busy making Perfect Dark whatever.
Imperfect Dark.
I forgot the name of it already. What is it?
Perfect Dark. I don't even remember either. I think it's just called Perfect Dark, but it's just under development by the initiative.
I thought it had some other...
There's no subtitle yet.
No? I thought it was like Perfect Dark...
No, not yet.
Perfect Dark 2-syllable word. No?
I don't think so. No, I think it's just... I think eventually it'll get a subtitle, but right now it's just Perfect Dark. So anyway, that's EVO 2023. Absolutely awesome. I hope you guys watched it. We made sure that we had the streams curated to sifted for the whole weekend so you guys could find them easily. There was like 8 streams, but we only curated the first 2. Those are really the ones you needed to watch.
They went back and forth a bunch.
Yeah.
I switched sometimes. Okay, so you saw a lot of the ads on Twitch, right? They were running the sponsored ads from EVO.
Chipotle.
Not Chipotle. What the hell was the AT&T fiber ad where the woman's playing the wrestling game?
Oh, I don't know.
And she rolls, and she's like, oh, no, and she rolls out, and then the guy just stands up and falls over, and she wins?
Yeah, I don't know what that was either.
What does that have to do with speed of internet connection? Why did you win when you were outside the ring? Why did he die spontaneously? Did he have a heart attack? Like, every time that ad rolled, I was like, what is this? And no one was talking about it. Yeah. No one on Twitter or anything. I'm like, why isn't everyone confused by what the fuck this is representing?
Yep. So anyway, there you go. That's EVO. I hope you can understand the excitement and the passion that Matt and I have for EVO. And if you didn't watch it this year, I hope that you'll make an appointment to do it next year. If you really love video games, I really think it's something that you need to watch.
At the very least, the Sunday finals.
Yeah, just at least watch the grand finals, like around 5 p.m. Start watching, and it just goes until like 10 or whatever. And it's just awesome entertainment that entire time. So we try to be evangelists for EVO as much as we can be because we really believe in it. And I hope maybe next year, if you didn't watch or you haven't ever watched it, you'll give it a chance.
And really, Street Fighter 6 is honestly a much better spectator sport than 5 was.
It's amazing.
Like, Street Fighter 6 is great to watch.
It really is. Yep. And it's easy to understand, too.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why fighting games were always the best option for esports to me because everybody knows what a fight is.
Yep.
It's 2 characters or, tag or whatever. But 2 characters and 2 life bars. It's very obvious what's happening.
Yep. Easy to get. All right, there you go. That's EVO 2023. And we did have another topic for today's show, but we've unfortunately run out of time. I'm not surprised talking about Baldur's Gate 3, though we went a little bit over. And we'll just push that topic to next week's show. But we do have enough time for...
Barry Lomax is also correct.
What did he say?
He's hardcore into fighters, but only started watching Saturday night because pools can be a bit much. That's true.
That's true. Yeah, the Fridays and the Saturdays, it's too much. Like, I wouldn't ask a casual person to ever watch that stuff. Yeah.
Although sometimes early on Friday, it's fun to watch and be like, oh, that guy plays about as well as I do.
Yeah.
It's so
well, they had the most entries ever for that EVO.
7,000.
It's insane how many people entered. Yep. Okay, it's time for Name That Game, where I show you guys 5 screenshots. And you try to guess the name of the game before Matt Kyle. There's a couple rules here. First is if you've won this year, do not play. Second is if you don't play PC games, please do not play. And, well, you can play if you have a friend who likes PC games. Fair, you can give a code to them.
Tweet out the code or something.
Totally fine.
Just find a way to make sure the code gets used.
Yeah, don't play if you're not going to do anything with the code is my point. And then the final thing is that our chat goes into slow mode, meaning you can only send a chat once every 60 seconds. So don't just spam the chat with random game titles hoping that you guess it right. You're going to lose. And what's going to happen is a screenshot's going to come up. You're going to be like, I know that game. You're going to type it in, and you're not going to be within your 60-second limit, and you're not going to be able to win. So that's how we roll. Again, we generally just let each screenshot go until you guys stop guessing, and then we go on to the next one. That seems to be how I do it. So anyway, we're ready for Name That Game. I hope you guys are. Are you ready, Matt?
Sure.
All right. Here is the first screenshot for Name That Game. No guesses yet. No guesses. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, no. GTA 5, no. Skate 2, no. Skate 3, no.
Red Dead Redemption.
Not Red Dead Redemption. The Getaway, no. Watch Dog 2, no. Dead Island, now they're rolling in. Dead Island 2, no. Skate, no. GTA 4, no. Half-Life 2, no. L.A. Noire, no.
L.A. Noire is a good guess.
It is a good guess.
Looks like the trolley tracks.
Yep. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, no. Mass Effect 2, no. Just Cause 4, no. Watch Dogs Legion, no. Watch Dogs, no. Lots of guesses, all incorrect.
Watch Dogs 2.
Not Watch Dogs 2. No. I think we just went through all the Watch Dogs, didn't we?
Yeah.
So it's now it's not the Watch Dogs franchise.
I mean, that could be Market Street.
It could be. Driver 3, no. Mafia, no. Metal Gear Solid 5, no. True Crime, no. Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, no.
Sleeping Dogs.
Not Sleeping Dogs. Okay, here we go. Second screenshot for Name That Game. And here it is. I think Gohan Rage knows it or something. He just typed 3 ampersands, or maybe they censored his swearing. MGS4, no. Mafia 3, ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. That's pretty good that he got it from those 2 screenshots. Yeah. Mega Drive guy, congratulations for winning Name That Game. Nexus 6 Baddie, I think it was. Yeah, Nexus 6 Baddie. You just said Mafia. And maybe that's a 4th rule that I need to add to the pre-game verbiage, is that you have to name the exact...
I mean, given that it's a screenshot, I would hope it's obvious you're supposed to pick the game the screenshot's from.
Yeah.
Not just the franchise.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you could put up a picture of Mario Galaxy and someone could win Mario Brothers.
Yeah. Yep. So Mega Drive guy, congratulations. Here's another round of applause for you. And here's the other screenshots. Here's screenshot 3. This game takes place in Louisiana.
Yeah.
In New Orleans. And so if you've ever been to New Orleans, if you look at that street right there, you know exactly where that is. Here's the 4th screenshot, which basically shows downtown New Orleans, although I did cut the name of the building out on purpose because that would have just completely given it away. And then here is the 5th screenshot, which is, that is New Orleans. So if you didn't and the cars with everything, you should have got that it was Mafia 3 from that one. So congratulations, Mega Drive guy. You can send me a DM right here at twitch.tv/siftedgames. Or you can send me a DM on Sifted at Shane. You can send it to me on Twitter at Dinfire. You can send it to Sifted on Twitter at Sifted Games. However you want to do it, get at me, and we'll get the free code out to you guys. In fact, I think last week's winner did not ask for a code yet. Yeah. And I think JM Rain hasn't asked for a code. He won a couple weeks ago, and I haven't seen him ask for one either. So anyway, if you've won and you haven't received your code, just send me a message and I'll get it to you. You'll still get it. Like, I still have the codes. I'm just waiting for you to get in touch with me, and we'll give you the win. And now, before we get going, we have one more thing. And this one more thing is really awesome because for the first time ever, GameFace has 2 sponsors. Ooh. It is a pivotal moment, I hope, in the show and Sifted in general, that we finally have 2 sponsors finally for GameFace. It's a goal that we've been trying to reach for years, and we've finally done it. We have a brand new sponsor, and you won't believe who it is. It is our awesome sifter, Sound Wizard. He just wrapped up all his work on Baldur's Gate 3, and he has his own sound company, and he is now sponsoring GameFace, and here is his message.
Experience the realm of extraordinary audio with Sound Wizardry. With a decade-long journey in sound design, we animate your movies and video games with the breath of sound. Our wide-ranging services include sound design, Foley, sound mixing and mastering, audio implementation, dialogue mastering, and the crafting of unique sound effects from freshly recorded material. Our portfolio contains Baldur's Gate 3, Steven Universe, Alan Wake 2, Gwent, Cyberpunk 2077, and more. Visit soundwizardry.com and let us transmute your vision into an auditory marvel.
And so now at the end of the show, we get to thank 2 awesome sponsors. We get to thank LS Cream. Go to creamls.com/sifted. Awesome stuff there. Great website, drink recipes, store locator, all that kind of stuff. And for your auditory needs, if you need anything related to game sound, or not just games as you saw in the ad, they work on a bunch of different stuff, go to soundwizardry.com. How good it feels to have 2 sponsors for GameFace. I can't even put it into words. And thanks to both LS Cream and to Sound Wizard for sponsoring the show. And unfortunately, we're out of time, so we can't do Q&A. And I already saw some really good questions in chat, and I apologize, but we've already reached the end of our time here. But we'll be back next Tuesday at twitch.tv/siftedgames at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We're here every Tuesday. If you're watching this show on YouTube or you're listening to it on any of the podcast services, please head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. And give us a pledge. Even if you just want to be like, hey, I like these guys, I can't afford much, here's $1 a month, even that makes a difference. For $4 a month, you get all our content early, you get GameFace 4 days early, you get Pack Your Factor a week early, you get all our other content at least 3 days early, and our Patreon at $4 a month is pretty much the lowest among the big gaming Patreons at this point. So head on over there and help us out if you can. If you can't do that, just write a review on the podcast service, like the show on YouTube, leave a comment on YouTube, even if it just says great show. That helps the algorithm, it helps GameFace, it helps Sifted, it helps Matt and I, it helps everything. So lots of stuff you can do to help us if you can. Next week, what do we got on the docket, Matt? Doesn't seem like there's a ton of big games coming out this week.
Well, the thing you didn't talk about today.
Well, that's one, but that's not a big game either. But this month... I
mean, that's it until Armored Core.
Well, no. There's big games the whole second half of the month, but we got to get there. So We'll see how it goes.
What's the other big game?
Let me think. If I can remember all of them, I can't.
Maybe just the one I'm interested in. This next one is Armored Core.
Yeah. That's the other gigantic game, other than Madden, that comes out this month.
Yeah.
And that may be in next week's show, actually, now that I think about it. I know you guys are all excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, thanks to everybody, all the awesome people in our chat. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to Matt for putting us up here to do GameFace. Much love to all you guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.